Oh my, you kidding? This is unbelievable. 1 second. Unmute. Can you hear me now? Well, at least Barnes isn't here yet. You can hear me. Let me change it to this. Okay. And in all of that, until I got a text saying I was muted, which I don't know why I couldn't fix. I don't know. Every time, probably because I went on Zoom last night with Frank, and every time I swap to Zoom or Skype, it's stealing my audio. I don't know why. And then when I go to like put the setting back, it doesn't work. So sorry for that. But you didn't miss anything like, oh, follow us here, there, the other thing. Barnes had court. He's coming. I'm sure he's going to want to share with you what happened today in court, which will be really cool. But I was talking about something else. All right. And I'm going to do a speed up version here since you missed the first freaking 4 minutes of this. And I'm going to have to cut that. Every election, I do a little kind of tour thing. What happened during the election? What do I think is going to happen in the future? Right. And just give me a little message back that you can hear me now, bro. All right. It's showing that it's going now. Not now, right? Right? There's like 3 or 4 of you texted me. Hey man, you're muted. And now give me a text now back, guys, and tell me I'm not. Because it's showing the volume thing now, so it has to be good. Anyway, I go around to groups. Awesome. Thanks, brother. I go around to groups, and most of them are obviously political groups. And, they're like, tell us what happened. What do you think happened? And what does that mean for the future? What is that going to mean? And if you've been following me for a while, then I've been talking about the realignment for a while. And you would not be surprised by the results of the, let's take the House, for instance. You will not be, and you weren't surprised by some of the results in the House of Representatives, where Donald Trump, especially in certain districts that I have been talking about for a while, because Donald Trump outran Republican candidates in these districts. And it doesn't matter what those Republican candidates looked like. And why am I going here? Because Republican consultants are probably the dumbest people on planet Earth. Here's Robert now. And I'm just going to finish my thought. They're the dumbest people on planet Earth who see. I just heard the phrase, the hot new commodity, to describe, Robert, I'm going to bring you on if you're ready. I know you can hear me because this is just like unbelievably dumb shit. Okay. Hot new commodity to describe someone like Myra Flores. All right. And this is what they want to run in 26 all across the board. In districts they already lost and ran behind Donald Trump. They want to run hot Republican Hispanic women. Okay. And my point to them, because everywhere I go during these little tours, Robert, I always get like some consultant, and they sure make more money than me. They're the ones getting all the contracts, right? And they know everything. So I don't know why they're sitting there listening to me speak, since they know everything, brother. Okay. And this is what they're going to do. And they don't seem to understand, one, you're stupid because the evidence doesn't suggest you're right. And two, you're a little racist, whether you know it or not. All right. Because that's the only a person thinks like that. The only way we can win the votes of people of this ethnicity is if our candidates are of the same ethnicity. Myra Flores is a great example. I'm not picking on her, Robert. She's beautiful. She's gorgeous. All right. So what? The messenger, it's not the same as Ana Paula Luna, who's also a very pretty Hispanic girl. The messenger has to be able to articulate and deliver the message, which of course is the most important thing. All right. And then we have a clown like John Duarte in California. They're really going to try to run him again. They're making calls telling who not to run, right? John Duarte is supposed to be the better candidate because he's Hispanic. Bro, he just lost to a white guy. All right. And also he did, while Trump carried his district comfortably, an old man from Queens, New York, who the media has been calling a racist for over almost a decade. I just don't know what to do with this stupidity anymore, bro. I really don't. Then we can get in with the news of the day. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen any signs, unless you have, that the people at the RNC, RSCC, RCCC, the various Senate and congressional campaign committees that they have improved at all in terms of personnel to the degree that they are going to be better at candidate recruitment. I mean, as a whole, to their credit, Democrats have been good at two things: candidate, and especially the last, I would say, half decade at the congressional level, recruiting at the recruiting for congressional campaigns, and getting out any opponents. I mean, one common denominator has been, like, you look at even last cycle, but last couple of cycles, in open seats where the Democrats had a mostly uncontested primary versus Republicans having fiercely contested primaries, that it appears to have benefited to it's one of the unique identifiers to what helped Democrats get over the top and what hurt Republicans. I mean, you see the disparity between Michigan and Pennsylvania as an example.
Yeah.
The Arizona, I mean, Carrie Lake breezes in if they don't run a bunch of money and bash the daylights out of her during the Republican primary. So it's these primary campaigns that are causing such trouble, and the reason they're causing such trouble is the national party is not recruiting the right candidates and is encouraging challenges to populist candidates. If you're a populist candidate, they encourage someone to go in and spend a bunch of money because they would rather have a Democratic senator than have a populist Trump ally in the Senate. I mean, and
I think that's what it comes down to. That's the bottom line. What you just said is absolutely the bottom line. You just texted, retweeted, and I saw it. Shanahan, and she was like, "Where are all the populist Democrats?" The truth of the matter is, there aren't any anymore.
None of the elected ones, though.
No.
There, I've got to give Trump credit. Transition to our next topic. I was curious why he had Kennedy and Gabbard go through and Kash Patel go through the confirmation hearings when that was a risky strategy, given the intense institutional opposition to any reform in Washington. To see their reaction to, I think Elon Musk stumbled on it. I mean, he stumbled on it because it's a massive spending spree. But the truth of the matter is, the center hub of today's American deep state is not at USA. It's not at CIA. It's not at NSA. It's not at FBI. It's at USAID. USAID has actually been the center hub. And what the deep state did that was smart about a decade ago with Obama is they also allowed it to be a Democratic patronage tree.
Yep.
So they're like, hey, don't ask any questions about USAID, and we'll make sure your Democratic pals get piles of cash. And so you protect USAID, protect your Democratic pals getting piles of cash, and you'll let us, the deep state, do our little business. You go to the top 12 countries, the recipients of their USAID, and it's all like dictatorship with war, dictatorship with war, dictatorship with. This isn't for democracy, folks. This isn't John Kennedy's Peace Corps going out there. This is this has been the secret pocket of funds for the deep state to do whatever they want, because it was easier to do it under USAID's budget than it was to do under the CIA's budget after the church committees and everything else. And they switched it heavy during the Obama era. And credit to the deep state, they cut a deal with the Democratic Party, because you're seeing all this money spent on like diversity in like Pakistan, someplace that's not where they need any money out for telling, right? Because that money, it's like Zelensky recently ratted them out again. He's like, all this money they keep sending us, we actually don't get much of it. A lot of it stays somewhere else. We're not sure where, but it over half of it never comes to us. And it's because it never leaves Washington. Just goes to their Democratic pals. They just needed an excuse for it. And so the excuse is called aid for development and energy and blah, 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 blah. A friend of mine worked on one of these projects. It was supposed to be to empower women, right? So going down and was part of a grant recipient, part of this program. And then the entire focus was, how do we get more women to drink Coca-Cola around the world? She was like, hold on a second. That isn't women empowerment, drinking Coca-Cola.
Who gave a donation?
Dig into some of who Coca-Cola's key executives have been over the years.
That's right.
Look up Coca-Cola and Kennedy assassination. You might find some surprising connections to certain people in New Orleans. So, I mean, That's who this whole big scam is. It helps the big corporations overseas. It does that business too, not small farmers. You're not going to find them trying to get Amos Miller's raw milk to people. They're busy trying to shut that down. So but a little reminder for everybody out there. I put this out a couple of months ago, but the timing couldn't be better. Today, a state court in Maine.
Yeah.
Dear Senator Collins, it's your home state. Senator King, you say you're an independent senator. This is also your home state. These are almost all Democratic judges, by the way, generally, or they're appointed by Democrats. A judge ruled today that the defamation against Robert Kennedy case that we had brought not only can go forward, but what was critical was, he said, anybody aware of Kennedy bringing suit on these cases is on notice that is actual malice, that they are lying about him. Which means anybody who tells this, that repeats any of the same lies, and they're the main lies that have been repeated about Kennedy throughout this process, is now I've got an open and shut defamation case against them in the state of Maine, no less. So or anywhere else.
He opened the door, man.
Completely. I mean, open it and shut it. Said it's because the guy we'd sued before, he got out on personal jurisdiction grounds. So we had to sue him again because the idiot kept repeating the lies. He thought, oh, now I'm out like scot-free. You guessed wrong, Junior. But the key was, he said, because Robert Kennedy has filed these suits in the past, those suits put people on public notice that these are false statements.
That's so
like
good.
The Samoan measles nonsense, that he's completely anti-vax, which is utter nonsense. Other lies and libels they've been trying to, that he's in this for the money, which is preposterous. He's losing money hand over fist. In fact, I even told him, he was going to Washington, and he's going to be cash strapped, and he's trying to figure out how keep the family afloat while he's there. I was like, only a Kennedy and a Trump go to Washington and get poorer. It's like,
I know.
You guys are supposed to go there and get rich. Just ask Barack Obama or Bill Clinton or anybody else. Only a Kennedy's already planning, I'm going to be broke by the end of this. It's like Trump. It's like, doesn't care. But the only guy to lose $1 billion by being in the White House, according to Forbes's wealth measurement pre and post White House.
Johnson brought that up, by the way, during Kennedy's hearing before the committee. He brought that up, and he said that he doesn't have to do this. He's doing this at risk to himself, his family, his wealth. It does not serve anyone who follows the MAGA, Maha, whatever. If you follow this movement and this agenda, it doesn't serve you in the way that it serves all of these other people who now are outraged over USAID. Look, Robert, what they're doing over there, okay? Did they figure out how to legalize racketeering under the Obama administration? Is that really what they figured out how to do?
Well,
because
really, it used to be under the CIA's budget. So this happened all the time in the 50s and 60s and 70s. And they were in business with the mob. They were in business with a range of participants. It was how they got their job done, is how they got their money done. I've often told people, if you want part of here's free asset protection advice. If you're going to create a bunch of entities to protect yourself and your activities, look at the CIA. The CIA always, they always name it like worldwide resource, exports. Something very generic, something very bland. That's all their front companies. Their front companies are always, why? Because if you Google that company, you find like 1,000 versions of that company, because it's such a popular colloquial title. They help hide their identity by using generic names. But they were running publishing houses. They were helping to run media operations. They were helping to run, and so when you see the list of what USAID is up to, and you're like, what in the world? It's literally the same thing the CIA was doing in 1955. It's like running Ukrainian newspapers, running propagandists, paying people grants that are to simply do propaganda and to lie about people, sending people. We sent, what was it, $100 million to that fake Venezuelan president, that Guaidó guy. Turned out we sent almost $100 million down there. You talk about a waste of cash. Maybe that's why Venezuelan released those guys that we sent down there to stage
thanks
a coup.
to the money.
And Trump got them out, and they're like, I'll give Trump credit. I don't know what he's doing with Panama, Venezuela, and these other places, but they at least go with some pride. You're supposed to have some machismo if you're the president of Colombia. At least wait 24 hours before you bend over. Only Bernie bends over in 30 seconds flat. But I understood why he did these hearings when I saw Bernie Sanders. If we've been talking about, we've been some of the only people talking about it.
That's right.
There's this huge group of independent working class voters that are divorcing from the Democratic Party, but haven't yet married the Republican Party because they distrust the generic Republican brand. But then these are people who help put Trump over the top, but a good number of them end up actually even voting Democrat down ballot or skipping voting down ballot. And so what does Trump do? Trump figures out, I'm going to give you new independent working class populist voters. I'm going to give you a master class on why you don't have any friends in the Democratic Party. You don't have any allies. I'm going to put up people you really like, whose ideas you really like. Like Robert Kennedy reforming food, reforming pharma, like Tulsi Gabbard reforming the surveillance state. Ed Snowden is a hero to young working class Americans, not seen as an adversary. In the same way, and then Kash Patel reforming the FBI. And instead, every Democrat took the bait. It was amazing as I figured, well, at least they'll go after Kash. Kash is less well known. And it said some interesting things on in the last couple of years. That's what happens when you hang out with Steve Bannon too much. You end up saying some
a lot of ammunition.
You should probably save those for the party later with Steve. Don't always say everything that's on Steve's mind out loud. God bless Steve. But instead, they go after the most popular of the group. The most popular cabinet nominee is Robert Kennedy. The man with Democratic royalty. You decide to make that the focal point of your attacks, and then you make bend over Bernie, take the lead on it. Bernie, who prior to 2016 didn't used to get big pharma money. Since 2020, he's the number one recipient of big pharma money. But and Elizabeth Warren, they're friends and family of mine that thought both of those two were left popular.
Me too. Me too.
And it's like, and now all of a sudden they realize, we really are homeless. We really do have to divorce from the Democratic Party. When the ex is back on the phone saying, I'll just come back for a little while, a workout, let's do a trial separation period instead of the divorce. Last week confirmed every single one of them. They got to get divorced now because there is no future for them in the Democratic Party.
Meanwhile, they elevate two absolute nutcases to chair and vice chair of the Democratic National Party. And they have, I couldn't get the audio. I asked a local news guy of mine to try to get me the audio clip that he was playing because, these binary choices, you can vote for a man, a woman, and a binary candidate. It's insanity over there. And I got a text. I have exactly like you. I had friends, family send me text messages. Is this true? Is this true? Because they did not think Bernie Sanders took money from Big Pharma. And I'm like, look, I just talked about it on my show today. Bernie Sanders has taken the most since his run against Hillary Clinton. But if you look over the last, 34 years,
well, you go to that list, and he's on. And the reason why he's on
because of the year span.
Because of how much he's been paid.
He
was basically next to zero prior to 2016, and then he's number one. How did that happen, Bernie? Kennedy was nice about it because Kennedy's is friends with Sanders back in the day, and so he pointed it out brilliantly about the money, but he did it without. I wouldn't have been as nice as Kennedy.
Me either.
I'd have been like, Bernie, prior to you running for president, you never took big pharma money. Now it's all you do. That's who you are, Bernie. As soon as Bernie could see the drapes in the White House, that's when he changed. You can go back to 2016 to when he started leading in the polls. From that moment forward, you saw a different Bernie Sanders than the one I knew from the time I met him at Yale as a freshman, debating with him. I was one of Bernie Sanders' contributors in 2016.
He's a different man.
Because I thought I was like, I want more left populism. I want more raising questions about immigration from the left. I want more questions about trade policy from the left. I want more skepticism about war policy from the left. I want more talk about these corporate captured regulatory agencies from the left. And then about 2/3 of the way through, he abandoned most of that talk. And then, of course, you knew he was going to bend over by the time of the convention because he thought, I'll bend over now and they'll make me president next time. How'd that work out for you, Bernie? They bent you over again, this time involuntarily. That was prison style, what Obama kind of likes that sort of thing. But what Obama did to you. It was just incredible. And yet here he is. He's got a chance to redeem his legacy. Sanders, Warren, a chance to redeem her legacy as Mrs. Consumer Advocate.
He's almost dead, Robert.
I
Just,
know.
whoa,
Exactly.
look, just redeem. He's almost dead. Just have
Well,
some damn character before it's all over, Bernie.
I know. Well, I was wondering. I mean, he still got. He has a chance with
Damn,
some of
light
these
came down.
votes. Can you imagine if he betrays Tulsi Gabbard, who sacrificed her career and status for his campaign in 2016 and exposed DNC corruption? I mean, if he votes no on all three, he's just dooming his legacy. But another guy, we should talk about on the other side of the aisle, a guy who's dooming his legacy with the last of the normies who really believed in him. You know, remember how many normies still believed in McCain?
Yeah.
And then he came up and was the saving vote for Obamacare after he won re-election in the
Rusty
Senate.
thumb down.
Yeah, he was like, "Oh, look at me." I was like, "Hey, well, when did you learn to raise your arm, McCain?" I thought that was, McConnell is going to go the McCain route. I mean, this is a guy who, within conservative pro-life circles, is nearly revered for his conservative getting judges on the court that ultimately overturned Roe v. Wade.
Yep.
But he's destroying what little. I mean, Mike Davis, a longtime ally of his, staffer for his, and Davis is like, I don't recognize this McConnell. It's like, some of us do, Mike. I love you, Mike, but some of us have seen this for a while with Mitch
for a
McConnell.
long time. Yeah,
but the normie Republican hasn't. And voting no on Trump's appointees after you voted yes for all the loony Biden appointees, he is slowly if he votes no on all three of these, he is going to doom what is left of his legacy. You only got 2 years left.
No. He's a no.
And that's what he said, and that's how the betting odds reflect. I mean, he is going to be hated by 90 to 95% of the Republican base.
Yeah.
He is going to destroy that PBS series about how he helped create a conservative court. Nobody's going to care because they're going to remember this treasonous behavior. Benedict Arnold might have been a good general until he became a traitor. And that's who Mitch McConnell is now. He's traitor in chief. He's I guess he wants to be at a lower level of hell than even John McCain.
I was going to say, have any of these people in book club, you know this, we were just talking about this too. Have any of them ever read Dante's Inferno? Look, maybe it's not real, but my God, you want to gamble with that? But it doesn't matter because Dante makes his point. The worst circle of hell, the worst floor in hell is reserved for the traitor, for the betrayer. If I told you guys, this is why I never understood Mike Davis and the rest of these guys, because McConnell hasn't been that guy for many years. If I told everybody listening what McConnell's, one of his top concerns, wanting to be a member of Congress all those years ago, if I told you what that issue was, you would shit yourself compared to the man he is now. He was concerned. It was probably top 2 for him. He was concerned about voter fraud. He thought about systemic voter fraud being the end of the country, basically, as we know it. And that guy preached about it over and over and over again. Look at him now. I don't understand these people. And the analogy to McCain is just perfect. The comparison to McCain is perfect because these people are so, the word is not corrupt. There's something beyond it. So Cerno would say they're just evil, man. Like, they're so diabolical that they would rather spend the last few years of their life betraying the people who got them where they are today and to the court, right to the end, to the bitter end, instead of spending their time with their family. John McCain thought that he was better spent, it was better time to spend to fly back to DC and to tell leadership, by the way, guys, that he was going to vote to advance the bill. He lied to leadership too, not just to the president. He lied to everybody, people he's been friends with for years. They thought he was coming back to advance the bill, and he did that. So what kind of pathology is that, guys? You're dying of brain cancer, and you decide a betrayal is how you want to spend your final moments. McConnell has had what appears to be no less than 2 strokes on camera recently in the last year and a half, or 12-month or 14-month, rolling time span here. This is how you want to spend the end? Like, instead of with your grandchildren, Robert, you don't want to go home and spend it with your grandchildren. Have people sing your damn praises, even if it's not really deserved. Have them, because they're not going to after this is over. You're right about that. They're not going to, especially since overall it looks like he's lost some of even his closest allies on some of these confirmations. I'm going to read real quick what Susan Collins had to say about Tulsi Gabbard. And you listen, credit. Now, there's been a lot going on behind the scenes, guys, to get these confirmations, to get these tough votes, the Collins, the Tillises, which I'm going to eventually tell you about when this is over. All right. And I'll tell you some now, but I don't want to jeopardize anything. So I'm just going to just shut up right now. But there's been a lot going on behind the scenes, but you can't take it away from Tulsi, how she dealt with Collins. And from what I understand, she was very impressed with her. All right. So you guys got to remember, Collins basically is the queen of the DNI, right? I mean, the mother of it. I mean, really, so she wants to put it in the hands of somebody that she feels like she can entrust with it, not just to reform, guys, to survive that office. And the fact that she got through Collins is very impressive. And this is what she had to say. Let me put it up here. After extensive consideration of her nomination, I will support Tulsi Gabbard to be the Director of National Intelligence. As one of the principal authors of the Intelligence Reform and Terrorism Prevention Act of 2004 that established this coordinating position, I understand the critical role the DNI play in the intelligence community. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence, however, has become far larger than it was designed to be, and Ms. Gabbard shares my vision of returning the agency to its intended size. What? In response to my questions during our discussions in my office in the open hearing, as well as through her explanation at the closed hearing before the Senate Intelligence Committee, Ms. Gabbard addressed my concerns regarding her views on Edward Snowden. I look forward to working with Ms. Gabbard to strengthen our national security. Okay. So for people who don't really know, Robert, real quick, after 9/11, it was widely believed that like Allen Company and all these like small little co-op of sharing of information was not enough, that it is always good to have like healthy competition between the agencies, but like withholding information just so you're the cooler of the agency got a lot of people killed. And if they were able to share that information, then we would be able to prevent attacks like 9/11. Unfortunately, that led to a gross number of people, the number being greatly increased that had access to sensitive and top secret information that was only accessible to a limited number of people before 9/11. And that's like a major problem and something that like Collins knows we need to share information. But if you do what's been going on, then guess what? You created an Edward Snowden. You actually create a Private Manning. Same thing. Bradley Manning is a mentally unstable, and yes, Bradley Manning is a mentally unstable, unfit to serve serviceman who attacked his superior officer, who's a female, by the way, and nobody did anything about it. Yet he was able to sit down in front of his computer and get access to all this classified information because of this post 9/11 world. I got to tell you, man, that is a very narrow tightrope to walk with her, and she did it.
Yeah, well, isn't it insightful how they're more bothered by Ed Snowden than Bradley Manning?
Yeah.
It's like what Manning did is classic. It's not clear whistleblowing activities,
right?
Because he was going through it and just disclosing whatever he wanted.
Yep.
It took Assange and the Guardian, everyone else to take out the materials that could get people killed. I think what Assange published was absolutely within his right to publish. But what Manning was up to was, for example, some people have compared Manning to Snowden, and it's like, well, Snowden didn't do the damage Manning did, and Snowden was clearly whistleblower oriented. He intended to go in-house because he was a naive believer in his bosses, Obama and Clapper. Yeah. And it was only when he saw Clapper lie to the U.S. Senate that he realized he had a different scale of a problem on his hand, that the president of the United States was in on the domestic spying on Americans at massive scale. What is I thought she handled that fine, as well as she possibly could.
Right.
My own inclination, I would have been more aggressive, because my view would have been, why did we get to a place where a conscientious, patriotic American, by all record and resume, unlike Manning, who had a history of issues, with Snowden, prior to his disclosure, perfect record, had no issues. Why did he feel obligated to go public? Why didn't he have the confidence to come to this Senate? Why didn't he have the confidence to go to his supervisors in the chain of command? That's the question we should be asking. If you want to avoid another, this is how I would have responded. We want to avoid another Ed Snowden. Make sure all whistleblowers have confidence that they can go through the chain of command. Make sure they can come to this Senate, to this body. But when he knew you were all being spied on and weren't doing anything about it, even after you got caught, this is why I would be a dangerous nominee. They'd put me in like a closed hearing times twice. I would never get out of there after I got in there because I would have been able to keep my mouth shut. Especially some of these senators. It'd been like, you corrupt whore. What are you talking about? I would have been able to help myself. Everybody was diplomatic. I knew Kennedy would be diplomatic because he can be talking to the people who utterly hate him, and he's still totally diplomatic about it. I have less that.
Super respectful.
Yeah, I only have enough of that. I mean, I have to deal with that in front of enough judges every day. I don't know if I could do it in front of senators, and I still get in trouble in front of judges 1 out of 5 times. So no way I could, especially some of these schmucks. I was like, that senator is going to be talking. That senator, that little war whore. But the reality is that the most treasonous group of people we have in Washington are the people in the United States Senate and the United States Congress. Those are the people betraying the Constitution. And to me, what is treason? It's not betraying some politician. It's not betraying even a general. It's betraying the American Constitution. That, to me, is true treason, because that is what defines to be an American. That's what it means to be an American. That's what it is to be an American in our system of governance. Is you don't take an oath to the president. You don't take an oath to the general. You don't take an oath to some politician. You take an oath to the Constitution of the United States of America and to the American people. And to me, Snowden was trying to do the best job he did to honor that oath, because it turns out the bosses were the ones hurting and betraying and acting treasonous and seditious towards the American Constitution.
And who is he going to go to, Robert?
That was the problem. He was about to go through the chain of command when he saw Clapper testify in Congress that they weren't doing what he knew they were doing. And when he knew Clapper knew what he was doing. From that moment forward.
Yeah. Which was heartbreaking.
Unless I want to go permanently surfing in Hawaii, I better find an outlet. And he picked a reasonable outlet. I mean, Glenn Greenwald had previously been the best investigative reporter willing to support whistleblowers in the world. And he went to Greenwald. And they went through an extensive discussion before Greenwald even published, because he wasn't even committed to publishing it yet. He just wanted Greenwald to know, the spying is real and it's in mass, and they got 100 different ways to do it. And he even went through great lengths to take out things that were truly useful modes around the world, in my opinion. I've seen no credible evidence that anything he published led to any death of an American.
Oh, that's such a load of crap. And you know it. I mean, I'm so sick of sources and methods, sources and methods, sources and methods. We've been hearing this excuse even before 9/11.
Yeah, there's sources and methods were illegally using their camera to spy on my girlfriend. That was their use for sources and methods. The sources and methods were spying on you and I's cell phones on a daily basis. That was their sources and methods. That was the problem. Their sources and methods were directly violating it. And to your point about Collins wanted an ODNI that prevented this so-called problem that caused 9/11. Some of us know it wasn't the real problem that caused 9/11, but we'll put that aside for the moment. You don't got to go full Alex Jones
consensus. That's
exactly.
Consensus.
I mean, these people were on known lists. They were on known lists that came into the country, folks. The people that were supposedly on the plane whose passports magically survived all the explosions. I mean, those were the indestructible passports. That I mean, they survived steel melting. They survived bombs going off. They survived
fuel.
Yeah, but fuel. They survived an entire building that was supposed to be indestructible going down, but magically they just fall from the sky so you could pick it up. Your local CIA guy goes, "Hey, look, there's on the plane." I mean, just miraculous. But yeah, I mean, it was revelatory even to me, because I was surprised. I mean, I knew about the institutional opposition. I knew they would lie and libel these guys. I knew they would do all that. The two big questions I had was, how many Republicans are willing to smack Trump in the face? Because Trump is going to find a way to appoint them one way or another, whether it's a recess appointment, whether it's a cabinet czar position. Like, if you're Senator Cassidy and you're concerned about the vaccine legacy, vote for Kennedy. Because if you vote against Kennedy, Trump will double down. Trump is not backing off of this issue. Trump feels he got bamboozled the first time around on this and other issues. He'll put Kennedy in charge of a vaccine task force that'll be twice as tough on the dangers of certain vaccines than he would be at Secretary of Health and Human Services. I mean, there he just wants to restore the science. That's all he's trying to do. Restore the scientific method to our government agencies. Get rid of these inside deals and conflicts of interest. Who knew that was controversial?
And as you know, Robert, on that case, you were on that case. It wasn't trying to take away vaccines from everybody. It was about pushing vaccines on children without
about
any
informed consent. Don't lie to parents to stick their kids with a needle that might be dangerous to them.
That may be dangerous to them,
That's
especially
what
since
the FDA's job is.
Yeah,
And again, if the FDA felt confident what they did was right, they wouldn't have demanded dismissal with no discovery. Right? I mean, it was an opportunity for them to prove to the world how great their methods were. They could do it against Robert Kennedy. They were terrified to do it.
Yeah, look, here it is. This is what we did. Everyone, review it. Go ahead, peers, go check it out and give us your blessing, because we know we're going to get it. They didn't go that route for a good reason. And I would just also on the D&I thing, you brought something up that's why I really, all of these, I get the point of their little consensus and the information sharing. But guess what? Those guys were on lists, and guess who else was on a list? The Tsarnaev brothers were on lists, and D&I was already created. And they did nothing with the information that not only one intelligence agency had, they all had it. For those who don't know, the Russians, Vladimir Putin, the big bad man, the boogeyman across the way, he told us about them and said, this is a radicalized family, we have a major problem over here with Chechen terrorists, and these guys are on the list. They are a problem. They're going to be a problem for you. The FBI, the CIA, everybody, they took that information and said, thanks, we'll get back to you. And they did nothing. Not one agency, not two. They all had access to this. And all of this information filters up. Basically, D&I is at the top of the chain. So like somebody like Gabbard is so important to have there. But I do think that, I don't know, let me ask you this. For the coalition, since we did the Four Freedoms poll, and also Wyden, man, he drives me nuts with that line of questioning, because
what a traitor.
What a traitor to himself and his own work. Yes.
He elected in Oregon on surveillance reform and on health issues. Oregon was a hot pocket of alternative health, organic health, back when he was the first one. That's what he ran on. Now he's almost dead. The guy's, I don't know if you saw Tyler's comedic version of them asking questions. He does great imitations of everybody. And he basically imitates Senator Wyden as a corpse, asking questions. And I was like, that's exactly right. I don't know, how is that guy still in the Senate? We really do need a retirement cap. We need an age cap for some of these senators. Lord have mercy. Bobby Kennedy is 70, and you would never know it. Especially you see him work out at Venice Beach. I think he's 50. He puts me to shame. It puts anybody to shame.
Oh, he's still diesel, bro.
He's got like a 12-pack up there with the muscle guys doing the rest. That's a guy I want in our health department, not a guy dressed as a woman telling you he's a woman. That's who I don't want it in the health department. And that's who McConnell supported.
I was just going to say, and Republicans confirmed him after he told everyone in his state to lock down. Sorry, you can't go and visit your parents at the nursing homes. You can't go to funerals for your loved ones. And he snuck his out the back door because he knew they were death traps. They were death traps. I'm telling you, man.
You got his own mother. Got his mother out of a nursing home, assisted living facility, while he was forcing everybody else to die in those same facilities.
To be trapped.
And Republicans rushed to endorse that guy.
And and could you imagine if
they made him a general, didn't they? Didn't they give him some military honor?
Yeah.
I was like the insult. This is like parody. This is like somebody read the Babylon Bee and thought this would be a good script for the president.
Be a great idea. I'm telling you, man, this is like, could you imagine, to play the what if game again? Could you imagine if there was a story like that for RFK? So here he was, not even using government power, just advocating that everybody stay in the nursing homes, don't get out, don't take your parents out, you're not allowed to go see them, right? And then sneaks his own out the back door, sneaks his own mom out the back door, because he knew that obviously transmission from the earliest days of COVID, folks, we knew that transmission was the highest in confined spaces over periods of time. So the lockdown strategy was always a stupid strategy. It didn't even make sense. And then when you finally allow people out, where are they all going? They're all going to a grocery store to touch the same melons, to sniff the same tomatoes, all one spot. So we're all locked up in our houses, tucked in, confined next to each other, until we periodically go to other areas, confined space, because there were so many people at a damn grocery store.
Yeah.
give me a
Ski, though,
break.
you need to be at Walmart or Costco or one of those places. Your local grocery store was uniquely dangerous. And singing hymns was uniquely dangerous. Churches were uniquely dangerous. Casinos, just fine. You need some alcohol? No problem.
No problem.
You want to pray to Jesus? Get out of here. You're trying to bring the virus to all of us.
Such a scam the whole time. Such a scam. Got to ask you about this though. I mean, a pardon on Fauci. So this. What do you think? What could possibly?
I'll give Joe credit. Alex, didn't we call it? Said Joe would wait until the last possible minute to pardon his family because they're still busy committing crimes.
Yes.
And he needs them. He's like, you got up until midnight, everybody. Midnight to get all the crimes, get the money in, shake everybody down, get all the cash in, and at midnight, I'm giving you the pardon. But you knew the family was going to be the last to be pardoned because he wanted them to commit as many crimes as they could before they got out of there.
God,
he wants
so
that double.
obvious.
He needs that refurbishing at the Delaware Beach House because without any future of Biden, the whole family's finances were gone. Right?
They're
Once
done.
Biden's out, that's it. 50 years of cashing in is finished. That's why he was like, "Boys, it's get on with it. We got 3 months, family. Let's get rolling." He pardoned Hunter quicker so that Hunter didn't have to go to the tax trial that would have exposed where the money was coming from. That's why that pardon had to be done pre-trial. And then it was everybody else. The brother was in on it. The sister was in on it. The sister-in-law was in on it. I mean, he had the whole family. It was a crime family.
And look at the dates of those pardons, Robert.
Oh, yeah, that was great. That's because he was neck deep in it. Once he realized the biosafety labs and other issues that were in Ukraine, that's when he knew he could leverage Ukraine post-2014. Got,
That's right.
I don't know if he suckered him or he twisted his arm. He got Obama to give him carte blanche control over Ukraine. And he was like, we're going to rake it. He looked at Ukraine the way the Clintons looked at Russia in 2000. And it's why they still haven't forgiven Putin. Russia was going to make them fabulously rich. Not just $100 million rich, $1 billion rich.
Yeah.
And Vladimir came in and said, nah, we're going to keep our own stuff going forward. And
Hillary Clinton shale deposits.
Yes. Hillary Clinton has never forgiven him for that. He'll give him a little bit here. He'll give him, we'll give you a little bit of uranium. We'll give you a little bit of this just to keep you on the hook, but you're not getting the real stuff. You're not getting the real wealth of the country that was right on the cusp of them grabbing. Russia had completely collapsed. Society had collapsed. Economy had collapsed. Government had collapsed. That until Putin, they were about to be able to, they got Yeltsin reelected. It was U.S. money that got it done. U.S. aid. There was a lot of U.S. aid that made sure they reelected a man with 6% approval rating. That's what Boris Yeltsin was at the beginning of that campaign. Carville would be dumb enough to yip about how they helped later on. And that's how Biden saw Ukraine. And so it all started with 2014 because that's when the Maidan coup was, and that's when the biolabs went up full throttle. Before then, they couldn't get into Ukraine reliably because Ukraine was tight with Russia more than they were tight with the EU. And they had finally got through, taken over. That's why McCain is busy, sipping cocktails over the party as the coup takes place. That's why Victoria Nuland is the one on the phone. And what do these names mean? Victoria Nuland, Biden? That they were there from the get-go and there all the way through. Now, what was interesting,
the pardons are right before all of what you're discussing. They all said were conspiracy theories, and yet somehow the pardons are all dated right before it all began.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's obvious. It was all really. I mean, this is why they impeached Trump over Ukraine.
It is
because he was right at the cusp of a massive money laundering, warmongering scandal that implicated major senators, the vice president, the president, and the entire deep state. Because their whole modus operandi, and not only just about war, not about defense spending, but about the biolabs that they just used in China to unleash on the rest of us with COVID to derail Trump's presidency and kill a few million Americans and a few million people around the world. So this was why all that had to be hushed up. They couldn't have Trump looking at it for a quarter second. No. That's why he saved that for the end and then saved the family for last. With pardons forever for all time.
We've never seen pardons like this. This scope of these pardons, nobody has ever seen a pardon like this.
Not with this chutzpah. I mean, he said he was LBJ but retarded. I mean, LBJ would have found a more creative way to get rid of these problems. He probably would have, he would have done like Bill Clinton was creative. He didn't have to pardon Ron Brown.
Yeah.
because he'd already killed Ron Brown. You know, Hillary was good at this too. You know,
Robert's on fire today.
you don't got to pardon your buddy Vince Foster. You just take him out to the park and let him shoot himself twice in the head.
Man, it's at the end of the day probably less risky than issuing blanket pardons the way that Joe Biden did for all of these people. And again, time goes on, and it's important to keep things in their proper context because, you know, Jones is right about that. You know, today's conspiracy is, you know, tomorrow's truth. 6 months from now, we're all going to know the details of that being true. And everyone who was involved in one of them got a pardon, to include Milley, by the way, and Fauci, right? So,
well,
I know what people think
when
are
we
gonna,
were. Remember when we were telling people when some people started getting crazy with Trump should declare martial law in 2020 and the generals will be on his side, and we were saying no, these generals are not on his side. It's like aside from martial law's bad idea for 1,000 reasons, you don't sacrifice the Constitution for anybody or anything. But putting that aside, we're like these and I remember getting so much crap. Oh, you don't understand, Barnes. These are the white hats. These are the good actors. It's like if you understand who Milley is, you'll understand he is anything but. He is one of the problems. And credit to Trump, he has clearly got a map of the problem areas and the problem people. And it was brilliant to have Elon.
That's why they're flipping out. Hey,
take a little look at USA. Bring in your little autistic nerds. Have them take a little look at USA to see what's down there. Just a little curious.
Did you see the CNN segment? I didn't get it in time, but actually, let me see if I can find it. It's like they're like 18 to 29-year-old men. They're like all upset that he's bringing in a group of young men that don't have
the nerds. It's the people sitting in the sorority in the popular frat house who are shocked that the nerds are raiding the house. They're like, nerds. And they're just disclosing. And what they're stumbling on is just the very tip of the iceberg. I mean, you see how crazy Washington is getting. Is it a coincidence that Mr. The Intel Community has 6 ways to get back at you in this town? Schumer is the number one lead guy complaining about USAID, about the cuts to USAID, about the lack of control USAID people have. These are senators that are on their little puppet strings. These are the seditious treason of the last 2 decades.
And have been for years, right? For the last 2 decades. He said he's clearly got a roadmap. This is what they're really so terrified about. This Trump isn't the first Trump. And now he kind of knows, he better understands the way the town works. And he understands, and part of this is from people he does have from the Trump administration, the first one, which he probably should have listened to, like the John Radcliffe's.
Buddy Sean is heading back to Washington.
Sean is going back to Washington.
There's a list of good names that I wanted to see, and about 80% of those good names I've seen so far. The people underneath Tulsi Gabbard,
very well.
I know all 3 of them that are going to be the 3 top deputies. They're excellent. They are excellent.
That's why we do a line in the sand for Hegseth too, because it's like that's the biggest bloated bureaucracy ever in the history of human civilization. And it cannot be somebody of pedigree like you and I were talking about. And if you're a DeSantis supporter out there, I'm so sick of explaining what Robert and I try to tell you. Like, I don't care about your whining anymore. The man was bred, his pedigree was to be somebody who comes up. Yeah, the base is going to like him, but then he sits down in that chair, guys, and he becomes one of them. And so like to push Pete out, do you know who they wanted to replace Pete with? Ron DeSantis. All of those stories about Trump were BS. As far as I know, he really never wavered on Pete. He didn't. But the people who opposed Hegseth wanted DeSantis.
Trump's gonna forgive, but running him at a key time is probably not going to be one of those things that Trump will, hang out with you and pat you on the back, but you're not getting any prime gigs. That's just, you got to face reality if you're Casey. I know Casey's still measuring those drapes up there, and she just thinks she's 4 years delayed. But you shouldn't have come for the king, honey.
You should have just waited. Yet another thing, we started off the show talking about this. It's very frustrating telling people 2 years before something's going to happen, 4 years before, how this is going to go down. And it's not going to go down the way they think it's going to go down. And they were one of them. And all of the people, the Cortezes and everybody who bought this line of bullshit, and the Rose stuffing DeSantis's ear with nonsense. Look at Chris Wilson now. I mean, the guy is being investigated for crying out loud. His wife's suing him from stealing data. This is the guy who called my polling a mirage. Trump's never doing that well with whites. You got to nominate with non-whites. You got to nominate DeSantis because the only way to win is to win with white people, who literally put out polls showing that Minnesota was even with DeSantis, and yet somehow Trump was going to lose Pennsylvania. I mean, the nonsense that they pulled, it's very frustrating to watch it happen because I'm not sure DeSantis, I think he could have went another way had not been for what we all now know to be the influence of his wife,
you know what he could have done?
Pushing him and egging him on, Robert. It's sad. It's sad.
He could have done what Rubio has now done, which I've been shocked by.
I
mean, Rubio is this big neocon guy, big war guy, big critic of Trump in 2016, and he just read the tea leaves. And he realized, you know what, this isn't working. The establishment path isn't working, and he's an ambitious guy, and he's like, I think I'm going to jump on the Trump train instead. And not only jump on the Trump train, I'm going to embrace Trump's ideas about foreign policy. I'm going to reject the foreign policy establishment, whether you call them the national security state, the deep state, the administrative state, whatever you want to label them. They're all a bunch of war whores who are parasites on the American productive economy and society, and are willing to lose some of our best young men with their stupid political causes overseas. And he realized, you know what, this isn't going to work. And now you're seeing him not only, I mean, in his speech to the Senate confirmation hearing, I think some of the people in that confirmation hearing were, he's good, Senator Rubio, so we'll vote for him no matter what. Didn't really process what he was saying.
No, they didn't.
That he is fully on board with Trump, that he believes that he almost even more than Trump does, that he's given an intellectual architecture to it that Trump hasn't always done. I mean, he's talking about things like people like the Duran have talked about this, but the spheres of influence. He's sitting there saying, we don't really need to run the whole world. It probably doesn't work if we try. By the way, we lied to Ukraine. Ukraine should never win, and that was stupid. And he goes down to Panama, and he just tells him usually I don't think of Rubio as a tough negotiator. God bless. I think of him as a guy who likes to wear heels and dance around. So, but then he goes down to
the hot tub.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what you think of Marco, right? Little Marco, right? That was Trump's inference. These are plenty big. Well, I don't know about his. Just saying. There was a double entendre with what Trump was doing in that debate. But you look at him, and he's a true Trumpian. I mean, he's advancing it intellectually. He's advancing it in front of the Senate. He's using it in Panama. I mean, all you have to do is go down to Panama and say, Trump wants your canal. Now, the only way you can keep your canal is you got to kick China out. Not just the playing games like Panama was doing. Well, they're not really controlling it. They're just kind of helping it. And you're part of the Road and Belt Initiative. China doesn't have any partners in the Road and Belt Initiative. It's China's Road and Belt Initiative. And I mean, if I was China, I'd want the Panama Canal too. Of course. It's incredible leverage.
More than 70% of what goes through the Panama Canal is going to our shore. I mean, more than 70%.
I mean, we lost 30,000 American lives building that thing. So I get why Carter did what he did, is because America had been so busy overthrowing every government in Central and South America. All they had was dictators and civil wars and coups for about. I mean, MS-13 is at least partially American fault. We helped create it by destabilizing the society, and creating hardcore gangs was the only way to survive.
Fact check true.
So I get why Carter did what he did. I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of how it went down, but I get why he did it. And I also get why Trump was doing it. Trump was like, hey, this is supposed to be our canal, and you guys can run it. You guys can own it. You guys can take credit for it, but you can't bring the Chinese in.
Yeah.
That's not part of the deal. And he caved right away. I mean, so much for Latin machismo. These guys fold in like an hour, 2 hours.
Trump's detractors are pretending like these people aren't caving. There's going to be a trade war with Colombia over coffee. No, there's not.
Even Papa Fidel's son gave up in Canada. When even a baby Castro is giving into America, you get a sense of how powerful Trump's message is. I mean, and he folded within 12 hours. He was talking big. We're gonna tariff you 100%. Actually, never mind. We're gonna stop all the fentanyl, and we're gonna send the Canadian military down to the border to stop all the terrorists from coming across. And we'll play ball, and we'll be good. We don't, because if you look at it, as Trump has pointed out, you look at the map of exports, imports, every country Trump is taking on, we have an edge with because
They
they
can't
export
afford
far
to get
more
into
than
a
we
trade
export
war.
to them.
That's right. They can't. This is a laughable argument. And I get trying to score political points, but these are laughable arguments. No, they're not going to engage in a trade war with us. They cannot. They don't have the economic leverage. This is, I feel like Americans, and by the way, Reagan again took advantage of that because the Panama Canal was not popular to give away. It was unpopular to give away the Panama Canal.
Oh, extremely unpopular. It helped Reagan
Extremely.
tremendously in 1980.
Yes.
But
Oh
that's where
my
I'll give
God.
Carter credit. Like
He went
there, I
against.
understand the conscientious drive for it, and he understood it was going to cost him badly politically.
Yeah.
It was like when he pardoned all the draft dodgers who went to Canada. I was like, he knew that was extremely unpopular in America to do.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll give credit to somebody doing something they think is courageous and conscientious. Now, Carter's problem is he was a functional idiot, and he had a bunch of communists surrounding him. I mean, a lot of these were hardcore. I mean, the State Department convinced him that Ayatollah Khomeini was really a moderate. And they said, yeah, let's go ahead and release them back in Iran. It'll work out great for
They're
us.
college students, sir. They're college students.
It's like James Carville says, if you come in with me to my campaign and you're some 20-year-old woke kid and you want to tell me how to do things, I'm going to tell you to get back out there and get me some coffee and donuts. And I was like, yeah, that's the old Carville. I mean, I love the old Carville.
But they're losing.
Louisiana Cajun populist.
But they're losing this. They've lost this chance to reform the party into something that's not insane and crazy. They've lost. There are a few of these people, and we've been talking about this a lot. There are a few of these people who, after the election, like the Matthew Iglesias's, the Rui Teixeira's, right?
Yeah. That poor guy.
And others.
Imagine being Roy. He's been begging them to fix this for 4 years. He's like, I wrote a book called Emerging Democratic Majority, and you're busy.
You killed it.
You
killed my thesis.
It's one crazy, commie, nutty notion after the next.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I didn't know, I wonder, guess who was an early USAID recruit for future politics that is currently serving in Congress?
R or D after the last name?
D.
Okay, because there are a lot of R's.
There's a bunch. You can go through a list. But this one, I would say, is one of the 10 most prominent members of the House of Representatives.
AOC?
Yep.
Oh my God. I mean, all I thought was, which one is the most outrageous example? But I wouldn't be surprised because she pushes things like UNICEF, stuff like that all the time. And for those who do not know what that is, all right, UNICEF, I remember, God, must be going back to like 2014 now. And there was this project to build schools for kids in Palestine, right? Except they weren't. They were using it to buy concrete to build terror tunnels. All right. So these are the things they do with it. And by the way, whoever makes sure that money gets sent there's always some form of kickback, always some way that they benefit from it. So that makes sense that AOC would be, I thought about the most.
He recruited her while she was still in college.
Yeah.
She went over to, I think it was Nigeria. It was either Nigeria or Nigeria. And was recruited and just happened to be there when a coup was staged. And she kept complimenting the government and how wonderful it was and how safe it was and secure when it was none of those things, by the way. And one American was kidnapped and killed while she was there.
Now that explains why nobody vetted her resume, why all of her biography on her website was fake. Folks, you need that kind, like the NGO and government organization incestuous relationship, which all gets positive media. You need an alliance like this, especially somebody who comes out of nowhere. Some young kid who's
like, say,
bartending.
A young law professor from, say, the University of Chicago.
Yes.
That, runs for the Senate, whose opponent, his primary opponent, magically drops out, and his Republican opponent gets into trouble and has to drop out. And then you dig in and you find out his mother was connected to one of the wealthiest. His grandmother was connected to one of the most wealthiest, powerful banks in the world. That his mother was clearly a CIA asset all along, working in very unique locations around the world. I mean, she's in Indonesia at very interesting times to be in Indonesia. Yeah. And then it's a coincidence she's marrying into military officials in Indonesia. I mean, come on. And then all of a sudden you're going to Occidental College and you get recruited to Columbia right in the middle of your Occidental College thing. And then you're doing a little summer clerkship at a program that later became infamous for the CIA's efforts to infiltrate the left in America.
Very tempted. Some of
these candidates have been long. In fact, the only president since Kennedy to not be a member of certain elite secret societies is Donald John Trump.
Donald Trump. Yeah, that's it. That absolutely is the case. And
that's
the
not due to
only
lack of
way
infight. That's due to Trump not wanting to be part of their club.
because he could have. I mean,
of course.
he had of course, he had the pedigree
But
to
he
do
would
it.
have been seeing Trump in one of those places would have been like watching Rodney Dangerfield.
Oh
in
my
Caddyshack.
God.
It would have been one of the most beautiful things in the world.
A bull in a china shop, Robert. But
it was what I kept telling all the Brits when I was over there betting on Trump in 2016. And they're like, "You're betting on Trump, that clown." And they were and I was like, "I just want him to meet the Queen and the royal family." And then they would start shaking with rage.
But to have that kind of true story is the only way that you not only escape being vetted, because nothing on her website was true. There were independent people from, I forgot what the name of it was, like a Breitbart competitor at the time. It's gone now, I think. No, it's maybe not. Big League, it shut down, right? Big League, Breitbart. We did some at PPD. And there was some others that did it, that we would run down her resume. Nothing was true. The businesses she claimed to have started were not real, right? Nothing was real, and nobody would cover it. You couldn't get Fox News to return your call. And there's only one way that happens. And there are two ways.
In New York, right?
Yeah.
It's not like she got elected in rural Western Iowa. She got elected out of New York City.
Yes. And there are two ways. One, you could just be a total deep state plant and you are a national security congressman. That's it. Like a full-blown one, like a Slotkin or Abigail Spanberger or something like that. And then the other way,
Kamala Harris, and just be so gifted you just blow all your opponents away.
Listen, can we just take the time to say thank God for anyone who's got a daughter out there? Thank God. I don't care if you have a D or an R after your name. Did you really want some woman to be the first president ever who blew her way to the top? Like, do you really want that? Do you want your Robert, I remember after she was elected vice president, Nickelodeon and Disney doing these like showcases with her. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, hell no. This is not what you want your daughters to look up to. No way.
In defense of Nickelodeon, they seem to have a habit of grooming people in a certain direction.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. It's maybe a true Disney youth program. It was like the congressional intern program under our former Republican House Speaker, Dennis Hester.
Oh my God, Dennis Hester.
He was looking at different qualifications when you came in. But yeah, no question that it's been, and I think it's been extraordinary 3 weeks. What's interesting to me is what is a surprise. I don't know how much of a surprise it is to you or not, but I thought, okay, it's a shock election results. Republicans sweep all three branches. Trump wins. He wins the popular vote and the electoral vote. He wins the electoral vote rather easy. The election's over before the night's over, as we predicted was likely to occur.
Yeah.
And the
312.
You would think you would want to step back and be like Carville and reevaluate and be like, what the heck? What did we do wrong? How do we fix this? How do we correct this? Instead, they're doubling down on the worst act. They're screaming about government bureaucrats and illegal immigrants. If you were Trump, what do you want Democrats talking about? Government bureaucrats and illegal immigrants, and how you want to spend lots of money on both. And that's all they've been doing for the first month, is screaming about illegal immigrants, poorly illegal immigrants. Selena Gomez is crying. Look at all the cartel rapists that don't get to rape anybody anymore. And going nuts on, like Schumer and everybody else, on USAID. Like, foreign aid has never been popular in the history of America, even when they thought it was legit. This isn't
even when they thought it was legit. This is the thing, Robert. It's like we had in multiple, but under Biden the worst, but multiple invasions at the southern border. We had multiple instances of the government lying to us and getting us into wars, which in just the case of Iraq alone, killed or maimed 1 million people that were in a country that we declared an illegal war on, right? I mean, we invaded illegally. What else? Let's see. We had multiple terror attacks that these government agencies did not do their jobs to prevent. We had legal and illegal drugs basically enabled by the people we elect to protect us and look after us, hollow out entire communities and destroy entire families. I mean, I could just keep going on and on with all these massive crises that's been happening in our country for 4 decades or more. Nobody does anything about it. They don't raise a hair. Nobody's outraged. You can't get a congressman to get his lazy ass out of his seat. But you take away their institutions that enable them to launder money and to be the crooks they are, and they're holding friggin' signs in the picket line out in the street. It's unbelievably telling. And Democrats, I mean, man, I don't know what to say. Like they're threatening. This is their argument. Until Donald Trump turns back on our spigot of money laundering, we're going to withhold the rest of his appointments. And it's unbelievably stupid, but I guess they're in such a position to get their back against the wall. There's really nothing else they can say or do because they're useless, guys. This is what everyone should understand. They're useless to the people who pay their bills and support their standard of living. They're useless to them if they don't keep the spigot on. So, and they're losing. I mean, we can talk about who had a better message each every day, but the fact is they're losing. Let me play this clip by our friend Harry. We love to pick on. All right, G. Williger's Batman, oh Wally, right? I mean, this guy is something, man. This is the truth, though. At least he's once in a while, Harry stumbles on the truth. And this is the overall big, bird's eye view.
They seem to be pretty gosh darn bullish. Their numbers, their chances have been rising. Tulsi Gabbard specifically to be the National Intel Director. She's up to, get this, a 92% chance. A week ago, she was closer to 52%, but as some Republican senators have come out, like Susan Collins, in support of her.
Let me pause. I know what you want to say. Go ahead. I know where you're going with this.
Over on sportspicks.locals.com, we put out some betting picks. Everybody cashed in huge on the election. Some people made as much as 5 times their money because, I mean, we were putting Trump out all the way back to 2023 when he was like 10-1 to win the White House.
This was the favorite, for crying out loud.
Exactly. And the second thing I said, bet on Tulsi Gabbard, bet on Robert Kennedy to get confirmed, bet on Kash Patel to get confirmed. Because if you know the underlying dynamics and where all these senators are at, they're not really in a position to expose themselves at scale and expose themselves to Trump. And Trump, to his credit, has been relaying the message. They're going to be in a position of power no matter what you do. So your choice is, do you want them to be in a position that you have some supervision over or none? And so he said, I'm going to the wall on these people. These are not people I'm back. And they've seen Trump all of a sudden be a different Trump the second term. It isn't talk and then try to cajole and try to be nice. And it's been, no, I'm just going blitzkrieg. I just shut down your number one global money laundering tool. I just shut down the number one deep state control mechanism using U.S. Treasury to manipulate politics around the world and here. What do you think I'll do to you, Senator? Senator who's been doing insider trading for the last 10 years and enriching yourself. I mean, I knew Gabbard was going to get through when whatever they did to Richard Burr forced him to nominate her. For him, old Senator Burr.
Tom Tillis.
To force him up in the front and have Burr be the guy to anybody knows Burr. Burr knows he's a deep state, intelligence state whore, that he hates Gabbard with every bone in his body. He was caught insider trading and he got out of it by doing a sweetheart deal with the Biden administration. So he and his brother didn't get criminally prosecuted. Whatever Trump had on him, whether it was, man, I wonder if we could I think we maybe relook at senators, doing it, whatever it was. There was Richard Burr. I love Tulsi Gabbard. She's wonderful. Everybody, that was a message to everybody there. Hey, if Trump is like, if I got Burr to come up here and say this, everybody better be on board to think long and hard about your future.
And this is the result overall. But yeah, you had to point that out because that's why the Hegseth thing too, or the betting picks were so solid. Once Hegseth got through, it was like game over. It really was because they already tried to put their best leg forward. They did best foot forward.
Chances have gone through the roof. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be the HHS secretary. He's up to 82%. Again, that is also higher than it was a week ago. At this particular point, the two most controversial picks remaining for Donald Trump seem to see their prospects going through the roof at this hour.
I think Harry's been watching Elon a little much.
I'm telling you, I got it.
He's got that. And it's starting to go. It's starting to go.
Better be careful. You might be. I mean, I know people across the pond, and they're like, "Oh my God, what did Elon do? He's getting murdered over here for some kind of Hitler symbol." I'm like, get out of here, man. Watch the clip. That stayed for like 6 hours, not even. And even those people don't believe the media anymore, Robert. Even they don't. Everybody can just go to social media and see the clip and see what he did. It's big. It's part of the bigger picture of what you were saying, though, about like they have not changed their stripes here. Like they're not like, even in 16, once he was sworn in, and in 17 they really didn't pivot, but they bet on something, and they were right, that the American public probably wasn't prepared for the instability of change, the volatility of change. And a lot of people didn't see that at the time, and it worked. That was a gamble, and it paid off because they were right. But now Americans know we gave up instability for what was supposed to be stability, and it landed us in an even worse spot with a bunch of people who are everything they accused Donald Trump of being. So now you can't just try the same damn pitch. It's like the batter is on you. You can't keep throwing the same pitches, and they're doing.
Have you been surprised? It's like, I mean, we got the Four Freedoms poll. I had got it circulated to Democratic camps as well. I mean, obviously the Kennedy camp and the Trump camp. And Trump picked up on it. I mean, not long after that got circulated, Trump starts embracing financial freedom, starts embracing food freedom, medical freedom, starts talking to Robert Kennedy, aligns with Robert Kennedy, then gets Tulsi Gabbard on board, gets Joe Rogan effectively on board with Elon Musk and the rest. Rogan helps put Trump over the top. I mean, it's not a coincidence. That's the most political Rogan's ever been. Rogan putting Trump and Vance back to back the week before Election Day, that was sending a message. And when he told Kamala Harris, you can come down and you can interview with me for 2 hours, that was a trap. That wasn't an invitation. Everybody knows Kamala Harris would be a disaster with Joe Rogan over 2 hours.
Oh my
with
God.
unscripted
Could you
questions.
imagine? Oh my God.
I mean,
she couldn't even do CBS.
No, she would resort to her default and climb under the table, and
caught on camera.
Yeah, exactly.
Baris tries to blow her way out of the Joe interview.
Yeah, exactly. Heck, hey, if it worked for Willie, well, maybe it can work one more time. But I mean, the other thing is, like what he says, most controversial in D.C., yes, but these two are two of the most popular people he nominated by far. These are people who have received millions and millions of votes across the country and had support. That's what our Four Freedoms poll showed. Up to, you had a quarter to a third of Americans considering voting him for president of the United States. This is the most popular guy in the cabinet, and that's the one they decide to go after? How dumb do Democrats have to be? I've been surprised. They have not reassessed at all. They don't understand being for the bureaucracy and illegal immigration and being part of the war machine is what people don't want anymore. It's why you just lost all three branches of government. And now you're doubling down on exactly those three on more war involving Tulsi Gabbard, on illegal spying and censorship with Tulsi Gabbard, on Big Pharma and Big Ag and Robert Kennedy.
You have Warren begging Kennedy not to sue pharmaceutical companies for vaccine injuries when you and I both know 70% of the country wants to be able to sue Big Pharma for vaccine injuries.
Including an overwhelming majority of the Democratic Party.
A majority of Democrats are like, wait a minute, why the hell can't we? This is like, I think it's part of it is it's worked for them for so long that they haven't been able to grasp the fact that it's not going to work this time. I don't think they ever had a plan B.
They don't realize what happened under COVID and what happened under Biden. Red-pilled a whole bunch of people. I mean, they should have. When you lose Elon Musk, when you lose a lot of big tech, when you lose Zuckerberg, you lose
Mark Zuckerberg.
Jeff Bezos. That's humiliating. You got Zuckerberg running to be with the White House next to Trump. A guy he spent the last 8 years trying to destroy with Facebook and Meta, and begging for forgiveness on Rogan, saying, I just hired a bunch of idiots and I'm so sorry. I mean, that's the sign that there's this massive zeitgeist shift, and the Democrats in the Senate don't realize it at all.
And I should correct that, because they did have a plan B and a plan C. They already pulled it. They pulled it during the first Trump administration. They're just trying to recycle it now, and it's not
correct. And they don't realize COVID for the vaccine issues. If this hearing for Kennedy was held 7 years ago, pre-COVID, the vaccine hits would have worked.
Yeah.
Post-COVID, they don't work at all. All they do is they're reminding all the Americans, oh my God, you do worship vaccines. Vaccines are like some sort of deity to you. I mean, and that's why I have my friend discriminated against who lost his job. That's why I have an uncle who had a stroke afterwards. That's why I have a nephew who's in the hospital over this vaccine. That's what our data showed. 1 in 3 Americans have either suffered severe injury, disability, death, or discrimination from the COVID vaccine. And they're up there acting like it was God's gift to the world.
No,
it's like they're totally out of touch with the American people.
It's fun. You know, even Meghan McCain is all up in arms over if Gabbard doesn't get through, there's going to be consequences. Like it shows you how out of touch they are when they do target the 2 popular ones, the 2 that represent the bridge that Trump built finally in that final realignment between those who are left-wing populists and who are on the right. And those 2, their support, even if it was a few points in Pennsylvania, folks, as our data showed, that immediately 40% of Kennedy's supporters were like, I'll go to Trump. And then the other vast majority of the remaining were like, well, let's see what Robert says, and when Bobby did say, I'm supporting Donald Trump, they went along. That's the margin in Pennsylvania, guys. That's the margin in Michigan.
In Michigan,
God, I got to show you this.
In Nevada. I mean, in all of those states. And
I got something on Michigan, but I'll wait until after Harry's clip. But go ahead.
And the only reason they didn't pick up a bunch more Senate and congressional seats is because those voters don't trust the generic.
They don't trust the generic. Yeah.
But now they've been just told in 2 weeks, you have to divorce from the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
Your only choice is either vote independent, don't vote, or vote Republican. Vote Democrat is no longer an option if you care about any of these issues. And the other thing with these groups, they're extremely active. So you have breadth, but like one of the things that you do a good job of measuring is intensity, because intensity often matters more. If you have 5% of voters who only vote on that one issue, it won't matter if 60% of the people disagree on that one issue. But if they don't vote on that issue, they don't matter as much as the 5% who do. That's the politics of math. That's why gun control plays out differently than the Democrats always think. They're like, oh, we can get 2/3 support for taking away these dangerous guns. But those are normies that don't care really one way or the other. The people that really know about the Second Amendment, they're going to vote on that issue. And that's how it becomes a winning issue for the pro-Second Amendment side of the equation. Same is true now on vaccines. People don't sit there and say it's God's gift to safety. They see it as something politicians lie about to experiment on them that can cause them great harm. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we did the 4 Freedoms poll, was we had a lot of Republicans who didn't believe medical freedom or food freedom were popular issues. They're like, that sounds remote. That sounds like some hippie eating granola out in the woods or something. And I had experienced through my legal work, I was like, something is radically changed. Something is radically shifting. For example, Food Safety News, which is a big ag outlet, wrote a piece after the election admitting, but begrudgingly, that the Amish alone guaranteed Trump was going to win Pennsylvania, that there was record turnout, record registration, record participation, record support for a Republican nominee by the Amish. And even if Trump hadn't won the other votes, that vote was enough to guarantee in Pennsylvania. And why is Food Safety News writing that? They're trying to send a warning signal to the allies of big corporate. They got a political problem that they better figure out. Going after the Amish, probably a stupid thing to do. Of course, the current Republican elected Pennsylvania Attorney General, who got elected with the aid of the Amish, he is still continuing that prosecution because that's how stupid the Republican politicians are in Pennsylvania. The generic Republican is a moron in Pennsylvania, and that's why they lose seats that they shouldn't lose. But what Democrats don't understand is they are about to lose an entire generation of key populist voters if they keep going on this path. Kennedy and Gabbard were an opportunity for them to bridge the gap. If you're John Fetterman, you want to prove, hey, I don't want to go like Bob Casey. I don't want to lose in a few years. I want to be an independent. You can't just rhetorically yip about it. You can't just
yap on about it.
You got to vote for him on the Senate floor.
Yeah. Actions speak louder than words, John. Let me wrap this up because I'm going to show you, because the demographics of those people that we're talking, that bridge is also really interesting. Patrick Ruffini did something really cool, and I wanted to pop that up and show you, because I remember when we did specifically that polling in the Midwest, you know, people were basically saying I was crazy and it wasn't going to happen. And now when you look, we can go back and look at precinct data. We know who lives in these areas, and we know, and same thing, it's not just in the Midwest, in the South, we can see it. We know who they are. And it all came to fruition. So obviously you should keep that in mind when you're going forward, thinking about, well, how are we going to vote from now on? What issues are we going to champion from now on? Right. But let's, let me wrap up Benton here.
As it were. What about the field? So the remaining picks, chance of Trump's picks being confirmed, the average besides Gabbard and RFK, you can't really get much higher than 99%. So look, there's a chance, I guess, you know, a 1 in a million.
What is this highlighting is something else we've been highlighting. So the show's named What Are the Odds? That betting markets can change narratives. And it's why Biden administration went to great lengths to prohibit betting markets in America from being easily accessible. And now that Kalshi is online and broadly accessible, all of a sudden it forces the press and it makes the senators and politicians pay attention to what people who put their money where their mouth is saying is going to happen. And what it's doing is it's forcing a change of the narrative than the one they want. Because, you know, the way they get away with these confirmation hearings of denying reformers, they usually get them to withdraw. You know, John Tower was the last one to get rejected. And that's because John Tower was so drunk, they thought he'd get drunk and hit the red button. I mean, that guy was like an alky times 10. He was just an old Bush family friend. So that's why they're trying to put him there. But it's like, geez, I mean, don't put George W.'s drinking buddy.
What a national embarrassment. What a freaking national, even from us. Come on, Robert. No one can defend that shit.
Exactly. I mean, so normally how this works is they create a storm that makes it look like the candidate has no chance. And so then the nominee steps down,
which they
believing they have no chance. What the betting markets are doing is saying you have plenty of chances. And it's rebutting. And so it's making it impossible for them to create a fake narrative. Gabbard's better going to lose to force her out so they never have to be exposed for voting against her. And now they're going to be forced to vote for her because they see where the dynamics are and they don't want to be that lone Republican senator unless you're Mitch McConnell and you just want to bury your career entirely. If you're anybody else, if you want any kind of in with the Trump administration, you want one of your staffers appointed because they all do. You want one of your buddies to get a sweetheart contract because they all do. You're not going to get any of it if you go against Trump's key nominees.
Basically, or a 1 in 100 in this particular case, that one of the remaining picks do not get confirmed. But the bottom line at this hour is RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard look likely to be confirmed, and the rest of the field looks really, really, really likely to be confirmed.
So in the end, although we're not there yet,
I just want him to finish this last little sentence, which is painful for them to say.
Nominations, some of which were very controversial.
Looking back,
how did he do in terms of getting them through?
Yeah, you know, Matt Gaetz obviously decided to step aside, and that's the one so far, the one cabinet pick.
He was a sacrificial one.
Or rejected. I looked at all first or, of course, the second non-consecutive term in the case of Trump, and compared that to the average presidential first term since 1993, where there were 3 picks that were either withdrawn or rejected. Donald Trump, simply put, is winning on this metric. Only 1 pick so far has been withdrawn or rejected, and that looks like it's going to hold through the rest of this. We'll have to wait and see, but the bottom line is Trump's picks have been doing better than the average in terms of getting through the United States Senate. Simply put in a word, he's winning.
There it is. He's winning. And you know that hurt, Robert. I got to tell you, we've been polling it from the beginning, every week from the beginning, which is going to hurt my pocket badly, but I felt like it needed to be done. All right. They don't necessarily, the American voter doesn't necessarily have that much of an opinion on like the Hegseths or, whatever. They just don't. We've polled it. Tulsi is different. RFK, they're different. And by the way, they both have positive favorability ratings. But it's not even that strong about that in general. Mostly when you're talking about this big consensus, it's that Trump won the election. We trust his judgment, and he deserves to get his cabinet. And that's it. So to say, I'm going to hold this one up because I want my money laundering operation back, or I want this one held up and I want to deny this one confirmation because he wants to sue vaccine companies, right? Like, what?
I mean, like I said, they gifted Kennedy his best issue. They're like, why did Democrats oppose Robert Kennedy? They don't want anybody to sue big drug companies that cause people a lot of injury. That's popular with 5% of the people, all of whom are in the big pharma industry. They might be workers, right? They might be. Kennedy, I mean, Bernie's idea of workers is executive director. Right. Is somebody making six figures. I mean, can you imagine Bernie was really confused on whether people giving him $3,300 were ordinary workers? The workers. I love that. I mean, that's when Bernie's old communism slipped out there. The workers, not the capitalists. He almost said the capitalists, and then he changed his mind. Executives. It was like, but Bernie's still lamenting the loss of the Soviet Union, where the man liked the honeymoon.
And he has the balls to go on to Twitter, to go on to X and say, that was a lie. I've never taken any money. Like, even Open Secrets has to say, that's not true.
Which, by the way,
you are
the number one campaign organization Bernie Sanders has told people to look at. He said, hey, if you want to know what's going on in money and politics, Open Secrets. That's the best site. That's the best. He used to recommend it like crazy until now it exposes him for the fraud that he is. The phony that he is. The fake that he is.
He's a fake. He's a total fake. I have a great picture. I should have dug it up. I will dig it up. I got a great picture of Bernie heading off the stage in the Democratic National Convention back in 2016. And he's got this. It's right after he endorses Hillary Clinton. There are protests going outside. They're yelling. They're screaming, Bernie, you're a sellout. We don't want Hillary, blah, blah, blah. Right? And he's coming off this stage and he's looking down with like the worst look of shame. He tries to rouse the crowd, get the crowd excited, get them involved. He's getting boos from the crowd. It was so bad. And then he's walking off the stage and I just got him perfectly. And he has this look on his face of, I am a sellout. I'm a sellout. Like I cannot even live with myself. I guess the new house they gave him, though, helped him live with himself.
Well, you know what they did before that? People tend to forget this little tidbit of what the deep state did. Remember, they put his wife and her son under federal criminal investigation.
Yes, they put him under the thumb.
Then all of a sudden, that investigation went away. Right. Then the sweetheart book deals came that helped pay for all the houses. And after that, Bernie's been a good little boy.
And this is what Americans want to end. And that's why it's like for Democrats to take this role and to take this, this position and then argue as if, that Trump's doing something that's going to hurt them personally. Like, I feel like Americans really are now ready for this. They were not in the same way,
I think they were begging for it. I mean, the mere fact that Kennedy could get a third of the vote was a screaming sign that Americans were extremely unhappy with where things are. Yeah. I mean, that was part of the Four Freedoms poll, was to show there's a bunch of Americans that care about issues that Washington is ignoring, and they're willing to back a totally independent candidate at record levels unless somebody delivers. Trump saw it and is like, well, I'm just going to grab that vote.
It goes to show you, too, how much Americans are like, they are tired of this, because we know how much Robert Kennedy's ceiling was from that. And that tells you that the only reason why anyone doesn't vote for a third party or somebody that they think is a credible choice is because the system is rigging it against them and rigging it against that person. So it just further seeds like this, they're over it, Robert. That's what I'm trying to say. They're over it.
The Democrats have destroyed themselves with a key swing voter, independent populist group that's probably going to decide elections for a generation.
And it's not very white, by the way.
They also antagonize some of the most activist people on the planet, right? Like, one of the keys to me is you need a hardcore group that's committed to you, that's organizing for you, knocking on doors, making phone calls, sending messages, supporting the court of public opinion, people that that are friends saying, hey, what about this? Well, that's like Kennedy's support group is hardcore. And a lot of them are mamas. And those people will go to bat because they think their children were harmed by Big Pharma and they can't do anything about it. And so now you have a group of hardcore activists out to against your party. And you've managed along the way to antagonize people who are billionaires who happen to be concerned with these issues. Whether you're talking about Elon Musk, whether you're talking about Nicole Shanahan, whether you're talking about Bill Ackman, you've had a bunch of people say, we will spend whatever it takes to defeat the people who oppose these nominees. That changes the ballgame. They're willing to spend more money than Big Pharma is to support them. All of a sudden, they are walking into a situation where the organizers are against them. The donors are key donors are going to be against them.
That's different.
And the voters are against them. They are writing political suicide checks. Anybody who votes against Gabbard or votes against Kennedy is putting themselves at extreme risk to not be in the Senate anymore. Now, some of them won't care. They'll cash their checks. They'll get their sweetheart book deals, etc. But that's where I'm hoping the Justice Department goes next. Mitch McConnell wants to play these games. Okay. Let's look at some of the contracts Mitch and his wife.
Let's look at his wife. Let's look at his wife. All right. Let alone Sanders' wife. Let's look at Mitch McConnell's wife. I remember, and I just wanted to bring this up, a little bit of a flashback before I show this graph, because somebody not that long ago had showed a clip from you and I back in late 22. I believe it was like August of 22. You and I talking about the change with young voters and the change with non-white voters, that because of the overall, I mean, we had working class millennials that are of all stripes. All right. And we had younger voters where they're the children of a generation. Now they're becoming of age to vote, and they're children of a generation that they watched get screwed by so many of these lies, that defined a generation like mine, for instance, 9/11, etc. And then we did the poll in Michigan later on. What was it, April of 24, where we tried to put out in the press release to explain that what we were saying in late 22, you can now see in southeastern Michigan, and you can see it clear as day. And then it was obviously in the polling right up until election day, right? So Patrick Ruffini, he's a pollster, for people who don't know. Echelon was not a Trump. He's not a Trumpian guy.
No.
He was a textbook establishment Republican. He had Trump up by 4 in Pennsylvania, talking about not hurting, or maybe 6 or something. But what he clearly saw, and I think what he couldn't deny anymore, was that we were right about this trend. All right. And even wrote a book about it, by the way. And this is what he's been doing now, carving up these states. We did the same thing, though, but he also did one with southern states that we didn't look at. And what you could see is, if you look at Kevin Phillips' Black Belt counties, right? And then you look at places like Piedmont regions in the Carolinas, it's like, yeah, Republicans win the Piedmonts, but Trump is winning them by more. And it's like, who is that extra 8%, right? And then how much could he have? It's a realignment, but how much is he losing to get these people, and who are they? And now this is Michigan. All right. He carved up Michigan because obviously we were trying to tell you folks, you could even see in the primary data, those were black voters voting for Trump in the South. Those were Hispanics. Now, not a lot of them, but primary participation is low compared to a general. So we knew if we could see that number in places that are heavily Hispanic, for instance, in Maricopa County or Clark County, you know that come the general, it's going to make a very big deal. All right. And by the way, even in like the Native American reservation areas in Arizona, it was not just black, it's not just Hispanic, it was everyone, even Asians, which I doubted in my own polling.
So did I. And
you and I talked about this a lot. Yeah.
You see the precinct results. Well, it doesn't matter whether it was Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean, Filipino, Hawaiian, the Indian, that you go to precincts that have, like they're in New Jersey, where you saw if you saw an upscale area move towards Trump, it's because there are a bunch of Asians in that upscale community.
Yeah.
And what's most interesting is people governed hard by Democrats or some of the areas that moved the most, like New York, New Jersey, Illinois, California. Like Illinois was close. I mean, I kept looking at that and I was like, is that right?
I just talked to Presser the other day.
I never imagined seeing Illinois. I mean, Trump is going to make Illinois competitive in 4 years.
He is.
That is how incredible that fat boy there whose granddaddy was helped be the accountant for the mob, and that's how they built their hotel chain, by the way. He better really watch himself. I mean, that's why Trump picked Chicago to do those sanctuary city raids. And who better? If I was looking at in Illinois, they're bragging that they're going to aid and abet helping illegal aliens hide out. You got that nitwit governor of New Jersey who admits he's hiding one in his house. He's hiding one in his house. If I was Trump, I'd send ICE there tomorrow, and I'd arrest the governor with him. These politicians that have gone from, hey, we're sanctuary cities. Well, that you could do because you don't have a constitutional obligation to actually work for free for the federal government. You do have an obligation to not interfere with federal law enforcement. That's a different ballgame. You can't aid and abet illegal immigration. That's not within your constitutional protection. That's what the governor of New Jersey is doing. That's what some politicians in California are doing. That's what they're doing in Illinois. And if I was picking somebody to arrest, I'd pick either the governor of New Jersey, because you probably got 500 crimes you'd find just on his computer. Menendez. If anybody thinks Menendez was the only criminal in New Jersey, they haven't been to New Jersey in a while. But the other one is I would definitely arrest that fat ass Pritzker. He commits crimes every day. He was the real Blagojevich wasn't the real criminal governor of Illinois. Pritzker is the real criminal governor of Illinois, and he's a perfect personification of everything wrong with the Democratic Party. He looks like Tammany Hall. He walks like Tammany Hall.
He talks, by the way, like Tammany Hall. He talks big in public, and then he calls Mar-a-Lago and kisses ass. I can't look. I don't know why Trump doesn't tell the content of these conversations more. Like who's another one who does it? Murphy wasn't really like that big of a talker. He wasn't talking that tough, but he definitely had one of those conversations, and he ended up basically bending over for Trump too. Pritzker, the worst offender, even worse than Newsom and the Canadian, like somebody like a Trudeau. They all talk super big in public, and then when Trump gets them on the phone, they cave like a bunch of bitches. But Pritzker is the worst case yet I have seen or heard of, and yet I don't know why Trump doesn't just. If I was him, I would go to Truth Social, and I would have said that very night. It would have been like, big, fat, tough guy, Governor Pritzker over in Illinois just gave me three requests where he would kiss my ass, and by the way, I told him no to each one. I don't like, he called to kiss his ass and gave Trump like 3 different ways, apparently, that they could like settle this. And he was being super nice. I mean, he was groveling, and Trump was just like, I don't need you. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And you can look like a fool defending yourself and defending policies that are super unpopular, like up yours. I'm coming for you. Goodbye. Have a nice night. That's it.
The only guy who's good at negotiating with Trump in public is Putin. Putin is the only one who play like here. So like Trump is having some fun taking some pot shots at Russia on this and that. Putin doesn't respond to any of them. Doesn't take the bait on any of them. Instead, he responds. He goes, we never would have had a Ukraine war if they wouldn't have stolen the election from President Trump.
Donald Trump.
It's genius. It's genius. He goes, oh, yeah, Trump's genius, perfect movement. That was a smart move. Da, da, da. And that's because both of them know what the peace deal is going to be with Ukraine. Is telling the Ukrainian war machine and the deep state, American deep state primarily, who's the principal profiteer, no more money. You're not getting any more money. That's why they went nuts. The State Department went nuts when they cut off the civil portion. Because what most Americans still didn't realize, we were paying for the janitors. Yeah. We were paying for Ukraine's government janitors out of our taxpayer dollars. We're paying for some civil service worker. I mean, it was just ridiculous. Without that money, Ukraine goes away tomorrow. Ukraine settles tomorrow. Zelensky doesn't care. He's just an actor reading a script. He's ready to hop to one of his houses that he has in Miami or Monaco.
All he cares about is cutting and running before he ends up like Gaddafi. That's all.
As long as the wife gets to stay on the Paris trips, that's fine. She can't necessarily rely on Miss Macron because Miss Macron may not be Miss Macron. She may be Mr. Macron. God! But and that's all they care about. All these Ukrainian generals, some of them got like 5 houses, and they always got to brag on Instagram. Their kids can't keep off of Instagram. They're like the drug cartel's kids who kept yipping on Instagram and then got arrested and
can put their dad on the radar. Put their dad on the radar. Yeah,
I mean they're sitting there outside the casino in on the French Riviera in Monaco with their 3 cars, with their like Ferraris and Lambos, and they're like, how did a Ukrainian general's son get Lambos and Ferraris to gamble at the most expensive casino in the world.
Thanks, America, suckers!
Exactly.
Flipping through the Benjis. Yeah, I mean, that's really what it comes down. And again, I think like we have these conversations about foreign policy and all this stuff, and I think a large part of both the Democrat and Republican Party think that, you know, it's affluent whites and affluent others that really only care about this stuff, as if the common urban black man can't understand that he's being shorted at the expense of like Ukrainian oligarchs. You know,
exactly. They know they see all this money going overseas. Well, they get none, and then they see illegals taking over their jobs. They see illegals taking housing, illegals taking benefits.
Yeah.
When the illegal cartel members aren't shooting up the neighborhood. I mean, I wrote a paper decades ago for, let's say, some interesting family men in Chicago. Who all they did is they wanted to know, they had heard of my political strategic stuff through friends of friends. And so they were asking, why are we now being targeted after all this time? A lot of us are older. I mean, we still have power. We're still the Chicago outfit, but you know, why are we now, they're trying to take us all out in one clean swoop. What happened? And I wrote a memo, and I said my memo was that most likely certain political actors connected to Big Bill Thompson and some other people in Illinois, both sides, Republican and Democratic side, I said, I suspect have cut a deal with some other provider, most likely the Sonoma drug cartel, to take over the routes in Chicago. And in order for them to take over, they need to get you out of the way, because those drug cartels are then going to aid things like illegal immigration that these politicians want. They're also going to line their pockets at a scale the Chicago outfit couldn't imagine. Because as big as the outfit was, it was never anywhere near where the Sonoma cartel was. And of course, those guys do get taken out. And then who did it turn out is running south side of Chicago the last decade? The Sonoma cartel. And what is, everybody in Chicago can see it.
Chapo.
Exactly. So that they could all see, oh, you're replacing us. And it wasn't white Americans marching in Charlottesville talking about replacing us. It was ordinary black working class voters in the south side of Chicago saying, no, it's us that you're replacing. It's our jobs that you're taking, our benefits that you're taking, our economic security, our security from crime and the rest. That's why Trump did so well with them. I mean, Trump's biggest gains were with black voters and Hispanic voters and Asian voters, not with white voters. Because
actually, let's pop that up. Let me show you. This is Michigan.
We were right. We called it dead to nails. Ann Coulter was wrong. Ryan Godersky was wrong. All of them were wrong.
Chris Wilson,
dead right. This is why Trump. Exactly. It's why Harris was screwed. Trump was surging with black working class voters in the Black Belt, which we saw in voter registration data and reported elsewhere. So that's why Georgia and North Carolina, she wasn't going to be able to win, no matter how many votes she got out of the research triangle in Atlanta. She was screwed in Arizona and Nevada because the working class Mexican American vote was done with this nonsense, as well as the Filipinos and Asians and Hawaiians in Nevada. And the working class whites in the industrial Midwest were done with this nonsense. And if you look at some of the biggest pockets, it's little Mexican, Dominican areas like that scattered throughout, because people forget these areas are all over the place, throughout Pennsylvania. That's where you saw a 15-point movement, 20-point movement, 25-point movement towards Trump. Along with the Amish, those were the groups that set the election. And what Democrats don't realize, this is going to become permanent unless they reverse course.
Unless they change, and they don't seem to be doing that. And you can see it on the screen as Robert's talking. I don't know how, it's pretty small, but I'll show you guys. I'll blow it up, make it a little bit bigger for you. All right, so what it's showing here is basically everything we said was true, which is that, Trump can squeeze some more out of rural areas. I mean, there was always, because of that low and low prop voter, that he was going to get out, which he did. But really, where it came out the most, you can see suburban professionals he gained with, right? He gained in parts of Southwest Michigan, working class, smaller cities. But look at the gain in white working class Detroit suburbs in areas, by the way, that include parts of Oakland. Okay. But also Macomb, Monroe has always, been, but we always talked about also this thing that was seen to be happening in polling, and it did, which was that he's gaining, and Michigan's a great place to poll this. He's gaining among like Jews and Muslims, and Muslims are There's a larger sample to really gauge in Michigan. And for instance, if you want confirmation about what you might be seeing among Jews in Michigan, you can look in Pennsylvania and New York, where there are still larger percentages of the population that are still, large voting Jewish communities. And you can see it, and see Patrick saw it as well. And now these are actual votes. These aren't projections like we were giving, but in fact, Trump could have won Michigan on the backs of Arab voters only turning against Joe Biden. And why is that important? Okay. I just want to bring this up as the first time I'm going to speak about this, like, kind of publicly. All right. So, yeah, Charlie Kirk's organization doing what they were doing in Arizona, right? And they helped in other places, but they were more focused on Arizona. You had Scott Pressler doing what he was doing in Pennsylvania, and there were other groups, even Elon's, doing what they were doing in Pennsylvania. And Sean, by the way, who now is my buddy, who's now going to be working over at the Defense Department as the head honcho for public affairs. He had something going with McCormick as well. They were ballot chasing, and they were trying to build an early vote by mail infrastructure. And that left Wisconsin and Michigan. And do I even have it here? I guess I might have taken it away, but 10X Votes, who the AP mocked, CNN mocked, like all of these outlets that covered it, had basically joked about it, came to me pretty early, and they were like, look, we know these voters are out there. Everyone kind of does. We just don't know who they are, and we don't know who is really persuadable, who isn't, and where can we have the biggest impact. I said something that I didn't think anybody would listen to, and they did, which was, you can see to the right column over there, all of these other voters that were low and no prop that they could go out and get, Robert, through a different kind of methodology, which I'm not going to give away because they listen to the research about how you really can get right-leaning voters, which is not like everyone else. They're more skeptical, they're more reserved, they're more conservative, right? And they're not going to just respond very positively towards a guy who knocks on their door and says, why don't you vote? It's not going to work that way. Or a cold call, right? A phone bang, right? So they did listen. And one of the findings was that it's not just Arabs who are changing their minds in the Detroit area. It's Arabs who are in a community. And there are voters who are going to vote for the first time. These are low and no prop voters too. And they have been hearing it from their friends who have voted for Joe Biden and are now very upset. And what I think Democrats underestimated was that, there are all these internal contradictions with leftism. How could you be the party of Jews and the party of Muslims at the same time? They have different interests. And the Democrats' strategy is to appeal to those individual interests. And Trump's strategy was not. And the reason he had appealed to them is because he was appealing to both of them through the same message: peace. The truth is, neither one of these communities want to see war in the Middle East. And his peace at home, peace abroad, prosperity at home message resonated with them. And all you needed were a couple good advocates in that community to do the groundwork and have the data support you and back you up. Anyway, it worked. It worked because one of the major findings was that even if Joe Biden alone had a major problem with Arab voters in Michigan, and he did. Remember the uncommitted vote during the primary. So we knew we were right? Even if that alone could cost him, or whoever takes over him, which was Harris, and eventually could cost him the state of Michigan, because they alone represented his margin. How many Arab voters there were across the state, most of them obviously concentrated in that area of the state. They were the margin. 145,000 basically were the margin. And you can see it played out, is my point. And the Gerduskis of the world who said that, look, let's be honest, it's a racist worldview, Robert. I'm not pulling punches anymore.
Absolutely.
After what he's a racist.
It's short-sighted. It's naive. It assumes a significance to race.
Maybe not. Yes.
Politically.
Maybe not outward racism, but it's certainly you don't understand that where this is coming from in your head, leading you to this view, is coming from a place of prejudice. You are telling me that you don't believe voters of color can make a rational policy choice. That's what you're saying. And by saying that,
ignoring the history that we've gone through.
over
The
and
long
over,
history
over,
of how
over,
these groups switch, how they swing over time, how coalitions are shifting, how populism is the driving force that's consistent all the way through. That if you understood that by the third or fourth generation of
Yep.
African Americans removed from the Civil War
Yep.
started to switch parties because of the economic alignment, you knew that these are voters that culturally they're conservative. Economically, they're populist. They have always been populist. They have never been pro-illegal immigration. They have never been pro-war everywhere under God's green earth. It's disproportionately their people who suffer, their friends, their families, their neighbors, their communities that suffer. I mean, for example, one group did a study after 2016 of how you could best predict Obama to Trump shifts in different counties.
Yeah.
And they found one factor bigger than any other factor. It was the number of people that had died in foreign conflicts in those counties in the prior 20 years was a predictor of how heavy they swung from Obama to Trump, because Obama had promised peace but didn't deliver it. Trump did deliver it, and they more fully appreciated after Biden. Oh, this is what basically, it's not just Rubio embracing geopolitical realism. It was the American people fully embracing geopolitical realism, because they're like, you know what, with Trump, this crap doesn't happen. We don't get the crap. Like, this is also the genius of Trump. Trump realized it mattered more about his issue branding and the perception that he was strong than that he be personally likable.
Likable.
Trump, by the way, if he wanted to be personally likable, he could have gone that brand.
But now that's coming anyway. That is followed. The likability has followed that him being consistent and authentic. And to
you want that badass at the front door when the bad guy comes calling, and over time you start to like that badass.
They grew to like it.
They got a soft touch at heart, and you discover that about them the more they review. Also, the way Trump handled all the indictments, all the attempts to bankrupt him, all the lawfare, reaffirmed, one, he opened the door to that constituency. We were the only people talking about it. Remember, he got robbed by, you think any black voters or Puerto Rican voters or Mexican voters that have had family be the victims of the criminal justice system, you think they're going to suddenly be open to Trump? Yeah, they were. And they said they were. You could just watch rappers, and they're like, dude, the dude took a shot, and you wouldn't have known he took a shot. I mean, the dude's a mofo. I mean, the dude's and these are like hardcore. It's like 50 Cent. 50 Cent rapping about Trump in his rally. Folks, we have changed from the time Snoop Dogg was pretending to assassinate him to now he's hosting Trump inaugural balls. All those trends were there, but we were I think we were we were definitely the first to talk about it. For the most part, we were the only ones talking about it. I remember somebody saying, who could have predicted that these younger voters and some of these minority voters would swing towards Trump? We were 2 years before it happened. That's what.
Hello. And the thing is, too, we actually were explaining to people, like, if Donald Trump had not lost the 2020 election, we actually would have had this conversation earlier. But you can see the left column, because I think some people are a little bit confused. The left side is 16 to 20, how the votes shifted. So you can see him losing whites in white areas, the Detroit suburban professional, right? Dutch West was Michigan, such as like the Grand Rapids guys, right? That Kent County, right? Muskegon, Ottawa, those areas moved against Donald Trump in 20, when in fact, Black Michigan, Black Detroit specifically was moving already toward Trump. It just wasn't as big as it ended up being in 24. But as whites were moving away from him in 20 and gave Joe Biden, a near 2.5 point win, Black Detroit already started to move to Trump. Rural Black voters already started moving to Trump. And then that, what trend that Robert and I identified, it did cascade. And, we were talking about this cascading effect. It cascaded in 24, when you can see everybody moved back to Donald Trump. Everyone. Professional class Oakland, right? Working class, smaller cities is like something you would think would be textbook Trump. Actually, Biden did a little bit better in them for whatever reason. So basically, this chart that Robert and I kept referring to over and over and over again, which was Trump's non-white vote share in our polling, all right, going back to 16, we never overstated his non-white vote share significantly like other people did. And you can see it was a trend the entire time. It was a trend. And there were always these spikes, Robert, and I don't know why the last one's not in there, but it should be. There were always these spikes where sometimes you would see it, his support with them rock it up and then recede a little, rock it up and then recede a little. It looked like the Crisis in Leviathan friggin' trend from, Robert Higgs. But at the end of the day, the trend was nevertheless increasing. So like this chart was 100% correct. It was. And
absolutely. I mean, Trump is on the verge of winning a majority of the Hispanic vote in the United States.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what we're talking about.
He's 55% approval within them right now, Robert. And
with the next generation of black voters, in other words, younger black voters, millennials and Zoomers, he's putting the party JD Vance in a position where he could win an outright majority of them in 8 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the trend and Trump understands this, and the Democratic Party doesn't. And there was no better demonstration of that than how they handled Kennedy and Gabbard. Like, you're going to try to pretend Robert Kennedy Jr. is a racist. That's your newest strategy. What next? Martin Luther King was really a white supremacist. I mean, I know. I mean, I'm just waiting for that kind of rhetoric.
That's going to come out when it becomes clear after the release of more documents that Martin Luther King actually got the Malcolm X treatment, which is to say that the FBI used radical members of their own community to assassinate them. The FBI pushed them and pushed them and pushed them and pushed them. Believe me, folks, it was never going to be some G-Sock sniper who took out Malcolm X or took out MLK. And now we know what happened to Malcolm X. The FBI pushed 2 members of the Nation of Islam Newark branch to kill him, especially the shotgun man himself. And they did it. They pressured him, pushed and nudged. They did the nudge that Eric Holder always liked to talk about. Remember the nudge? Eric Holder used to, that's the nudge.
All that's going to do is keep increasing Trump's appeal to that constituency and validity and credibility. Yep. I mean, how many people
until Black America finds out that white liberals killed Martin Luther King? Wait.
Yeah, all you got to do is quote Malcolm X about white liberals.
Bamboozled.
Yep. He goes. He said they were the true devil.
They are the true devil.
He goes on a long tirade about white liberals. So I mean, he's bringing back an audience that's always been there. And in terms of their core ideology, they just could not trust the Republican brand for rather obvious reasons.
That's the obstacle here.
And the key is the other advantage. If Trump gets these people through, he's redefining the Republican brand, even if McConnell hates it. The Trump is going to be the Republican brand within 4. And as long as Trump is the Republican brand and more people run on Trumpism, you're going to see gains in the House and the Senate and the governorships and the state legislatures. Trump could build a 1920s style Republican edge across the nation because he is building a geopolitical realism, populism rooted that is popular across America and always has been. Populism is America's core ideology if you track it all the way back.
It is its default. This was a revolution of yowmen, not intellectuals, professional class, ruling class intellectuals. This country, the revolution was driven and fought by yowmen, the average populist working class man or woman. Even like Adams, who was a lawyer, Robert, was still like modesty to its core. He was not
I was thinking about, maybe this will be the subtitle for the book that hopefully we get to work on. I'm supposed to get around to at some point. I want to do an updated version of Kevin Phillips, but just call it the populist majority. But I was thinking you could actually have a different title, the populist majority be a subtitle. It's really the Trump realignment. We are seeing, for a while there was questions about whether Phillips' realignment theory was still holding true in American politics. Trump is creating a realignment.
Could just call it the realignment. Or whatever.
Because, and it is a massive class-based shift.
We really have to talk about that because I think Laura might have like an actual book deal for us, bro. All right,
sweet. Yeah, well, I'm happy.
I'm serious. She's been bombarding people and like.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, and her tactics are not to be disputed. So yeah, we do need to talk about this. Also, is this? Look at that. Is this an example of libel right here? Wait. RFK Jr. confirmed, not libel, a big day for measles, mumps, rubella, and polio. Their comeback is on. And here he is, fact checked. We were just talking about this, Robert. All right. This is very clearly false information. This is a smear of the highest order. And Community Notes has noted it with an AP article, for crying out loud, and it still is not removed. You're gonna have to put that in the tank.
Yeah,
Have to
I mean,
put
all
that
these
one in
people,
the tank, brother.
they should pay. I mean, the governor of Hawaii, if he wants to keep repeating that Samoan measles lie, he can be sued like everybody else.
Yeah.
And he's making these statements everywhere, and he's deliberately making them in certain jurisdictions so he can be sued in those jurisdictions, not just his home state, and in case he thinks he's got political protection there. So all of these people are subject to potential suit, and they're living off of the grace of Robert Kennedy that they haven't yet been sued. Again, I mean, a court has officially found, a court in a Democratic state, no less, has found that the false statements against Robert Kennedy are not only defamatory, but that they are made with actual malice because they have already been documented as being false years before in prior cases that we have brought. So you have no excuse if you repeat these lies and libels. And what was funny was this guy who libeled Kennedy, he was like, but the New York Times libeled him too. And the judge is like, that's not an excuse. That makes it
great
worse.
defense. A great defense, right?
I mean, you might see all kinds of cases down the road. That'll be up to Kennedy. I mean, Kennedy's whole focus, his obsessive focus, is making life better for kids, so that our kids don't die as early. So we don't have shrinking life expectancy in what should be the most developed country in the world. It's supposed to have the best health. We have the most expensive health care. Supposed to have the best health care in the world. How is it that we're dying earlier than we were before? Why is our life expectancy going down? Why our entire population? And this is where, like, African-American communities, Native American communities, Mexican American, they understand all of this.
They get this.
They're very close to the issues of food freedom, very close to the issues of medical freedom. Some of the people discriminated against the most in the food freedom space are Mexican-American food vendors. They don't understand. Why can't I just roll out? I got some great corn. I got some great tortillas. I make some great fruit. I make these unique food. Why can't I just roll them out for my local neighborhood? No, like, no, you have to get this permit, that permit, another permit, the other permit, this thing. It cost you $100,000 just to open a restaurant.
And as it turns out, it also appeals to the patchouli smelling liberal in rural Vermont. And it's like, how the hell could you? And by the way, Bernie Sanders just put out his statement about why he voted no on RFK. And it's like, just a bunch of lies, Robert.
And he's DOA. His political career is DOA. His legacy is done. He's going to be, he'll be lucky if he's a footnote in history. He mostly goes down as a warning sign not to be a traitor to the principles you purport to support. He is just, Elizabeth Warren is completely gone in terms of her legacy, her career. I mean, they've all torched themselves. I mean, Fetterman had an opportunity to make himself the new standard bearer for the populist left. And I mean, Fetterman just saw a famous name go down in Pennsylvania. I mean, I don't know about you, but 6 months ago, I didn't think Bob Casey could be beaten.
Oh my God. What a huge development at the Casey.
Absolutely. If you're Fetterman, if we were advising Fetterman, we're on the Democratic side, it would be embrace these populist independent issues where there's overlap with Trump, where you can buy credibility with these key voters, where they can say you're a different kind of Democrat, and then you can hold on in a few years when you run for re-election. He doesn't vote for them. A bunch of these guys are going to go down. Warnock is going to be at risk in the primaries. But
that's what they're worried about. Their own primary, though, Robert. That's what they're worried about. Fetterman does not, in a general, start at the position that Bob Casey starts at. He did not, and never will. But Fetterman will have to worry about a challenge from his left. And
I will give credit to Collins. Collins was a senator. I wasn't. If she went against us, she's from a very Democratic state. I'm not going to raise a huge stink about it. But the fact that she made the right decision on Gabbard and is probably going to make the right decision on Kennedy and probably going to make the right decision on Cash, it's like, okay, she just didn't like Hegseth saying he didn't like women in the military. Okay, fine. I get that. That's your own thing. But I'll give her credit. I mean, if she sticks out like she stuck her neck out on Kavanaugh, even though I wasn't a big Kavanaugh fan, I was like, all right. That's okay by me when you're from an overwhelmingly, it's like Manchin. If I was a Democrat, I wouldn't complain about every time Manchin voted Republican on a Republican issue because he's in a state that's overwhelmingly Republican. Murkowski, different animal. That corrupt scum. I mean, she's failed the bar 4 times. She's dumb as a doorknob. Her corrupt governor was her daddy. Is the only reason she got in. She created ranked choice voting
to survive.
That's it. It's the only way she has survived. So she's in a whole different position. I mean, she's even complaining about Mount McKinley being named Mount McKinley. It's like, no, it should be named Mount, I mean, whatever. But so she's a different animal. McConnell should be, you know what I'm curious about? You've often highlighted the problems of the real history of the 17th Amendment.
Yep.
Some people have pointed out to me that some of these states still have laws on the books that they can recall their senators. It'd be interesting because I don't think that's been legally challenged a whole lot. The assumption is the 17th Amendment makes those laws unconstitutional, but I haven't seen it challenged yet.
You want to hear
better
something?
to challenge it with? Kentucky legislature, get off your ears, try to recall McConnell and see what make McConnell run to the courts and get the courts to stop it. But it would be a great way to teach McConnell and all the other Republicans a lesson.
McConnell was always afraid of some grassroots effort to remove him. So he did get state legislation basically outlawing recalling, but not through the original design. So the way that you can get a recall vote like they did for Gavin Newsom, they don't allow that for senators in Kentucky. But that doesn't bring up what you're talking about, which is, what if the state legislature wanted to remove McConnell? Because we have never tested those waters. I always forget it from George Mason
ever saying that it was removing that. I don't recall in the constitutional debate it was removing the power of. It said it was removing the power of state legislatures to a point, but it didn't say anything about their power to recall.
Todd Sawicki has done a lot of stuff on this, and I have long wanted to see a challenge if there was ever a state legislature that had the balls to try to go about it. Because, it doesn't really discuss. And for those of you who don't know, we're talking about the 17th Amendment changed the way that we elect senators from our legislatures doing it in the state level to direct. So now you vote for them. But if you read the 17th Amendment, it speaks, like Robert just said, about how you elect them. That doesn't really deal with the question of whether or not the state legislature still has the power to recall them. In post-17th Amendment world, most states have gone the route of allowing recall processes that deal with direct elections the same way. If you get this many signatures, if you do this, from certain number of counties, got to be representative. California is a good example. But it doesn't. It does not explicitly say that Kentucky cannot have their legislature.
A lot of those state constitutions use the same language about electing those offices subject to recall as the 17th Amendment.
Yeah.
So arguably, the 17th Amendment's failure to exclude recall as an option when they knew it was an option at the time is evidence that they intended to allow recall as an option going forward.
I'm with that because there's this stated, this is the way our country is. The law has been, designed in our country, where if it's not specifically stated that this is, that this power is vested in whatever, the federal government or the voter, then it goes where? To the states. It's an implied state power.
Also,
so
it'd be a great message to McConnell because McConnell still thinks he owns that whole state.
He probably
I know from personal experience because he tried to get Thomas Massey defeated in the House. And as part of that process, he deliberately undermined the Covington kids case.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't know. I know because I personally experienced it.
You should
I represented a bunch of those Covington kids, and it was people connected to McConnell. McConnell's people were spreading a fake rumor that I was trying to sue the Catholic Church and that I was anti-Catholic when it was utterly false, completely made up. It told a bunch of lies. It was part of why Nicholas Sandmann went a different route is people around him were being told that I would, destroy any political ambitions, aspirations he had. I didn't care one way or the other. I was doing all that for free, by the way. I was all the Covington kids case. I just got ticked at the New York Times, said if anybody wants to sue him, I'll represent him for free. I was on vacation at the time, came back. A lot of people wanted me to sue for free, so I did. But the key hindrance was McConnell's people spreading lies over and over and over again to the Covington community because McConnell wanted to make sure they had controlled representation that wouldn't offend all of his pals in Washington, D.C. And so, including many of the key members of the media who had been part of the lies and libels against those kids. That's how corrupt McConnell is. He would interfere with the efforts of kids trying to protect their reputations from libel in his own home state because he cared more about his relationships in Washington, D.C. than he did in the kids in Kentucky. And at the same time, he wanted to undermine Massey. it drives him crazy that Rand Paul is the other senator from Kentucky. He wanted to handpick the governor. It was his guy that ran for governor. His guy managed to lose. I don't know how you even do that, but he did. And so he thinks he owns the state, like it's his personal boss hog role. So it'd be nice to teach him a lesson that voting no on Trump's key nominees that got Trump elected in a Kentucky state that voted for Trump by 31 points, some smart Kentucky legislator is going to realize McConnell no longer owns that state, that he is hated in large parts of that state, and they can start to go after McConnell. And a good way to do it would be to try the recall process and let McConnell beg the federal judges to bail him out. But it would send a clear message to every other senator. Oh, hold on a second. If McConnell, the guy who's supposed to own his state, has his own party state legislature trying to recall him, then maybe we should be careful about how far we step out of bounds from the Trump support.
Yeah, even if it doesn't get its intended, it's stated.
Yeah, even if the courts say you can't do it, at least you got there. Not only that, it's kind of like birthright citizenship.
Oh, I love this idea, Robert. Oh my God, if we could,
those doctrines the courts are not going to recognize Trump's birthright citizenship. But my view is that's fine. Establish to the country that we need an amendment to clarify to the Constitution an issue like birthright citizenship. I think that would be a massive political winner. Run on an amendment that says only those who are born to Americans are Americans. No more anchor babies. No more of this birthright tourism, because that's what's happening. People advertise to say, we will help you get to America and give you American citizenship, and then government benefits that come with it, because the kid gets the benefits, the parent gets the recipients of it. All of a sudden, American tax dollars are going to this. The way to assume the courts are going to reject it, continue to make it a constitutional amendment issue. I think it would have huge it would be a winner without doubt.
Oh my God, 100%. It would, and I never understood that in the law, Robert, how the author himself made such a big deal over the phrase subject to the jurisdiction of, and it gets overlooked so much. But we were talking about Doge before, and somebody just 6 minutes ago or 8 minutes ago asked Trump a question about it, and I want to play it. And then they also asked him about Iran, and apparently there's another plot to kill Donald Trump. All right. And I want to play, before we go, his response on what he said, because it's so it goes to what what Barnes was just saying, guys, about how Trump was always, I don't know if it's revered or respected for being strong. And then the likability came later. All right. And this is a textbook example of, what he is that really other Republicans are not, and many others aren't. But let's play the first clip. This is hilarious. So it's about Elon Musk, who just quote tweeted Chuck Schumer, saying that he's terrified that that we are dismantling the racket in public view for everybody to see. And that's what they're really flipping out about. And they said, Mr. President, why did you really do this? Okay. And this is what he said.
And look at all the fraud that he's found in this USAID. It's a disaster. What the people, radical left lunatics, they have things that nobody would have even believed. The whole thing with $100 million spent on what, with money going to all sorts of groups that shouldn't deserve to get any money. With the money, I'd like to see what the kickbacks are. How much money has been kicked back? Who would spend that kind of money to some of the things that you read about and I read about and I see every night in the news and every morning when I read the papers? Who would spend money for that? I would say this. The people that got all that money, are they kicking it back to the people that gave it from government? No, that's, to me, very, very corrupt. The real question is how much of a kickback.
You know who he's responding
to. So, I was just going to say.
This is a message to everybody in the Senate. This is a message to everybody in Congress.
Yes, sir.
This is to all the think tanks in D.C. I know the scam. You keep objecting to my policy changes.
You already know.
And we'll look at where you were getting your money from, because I know you were getting kickbacks.
100%.
Put it out there. Also, I love Trump's genius. He always creates something that lets other people speculate on what it is, how terrible it is. He goes,
what do you
think?
They were
spending $100 million on what? Right? And everybody's like, oh, which one is the what?
What's that?
Is it the condoms to Gaza? Is it the DEI in Pakistan?
Is that one you, or is that me?
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was brilliant. And that's credit to Trump. That's a shot right across the bow, right to Schumer, too. If Schumer thought the intel community had 6 ways to Sunday to get you, well, Donald Trump has a dozen ways to get you, Chucky. So you better think long and hard about going down that path.
That's so funny because you knew it. I mean, this is what a lot of these idiots in the media do. They try to at least pretend like they don't know it. He already knows. That's a shot across the bow. That's his. And then he's got Chuck and he's got Dick Blumenthal and he's got the rest of them looking at each other. Adam's like, yo, Chuck, is he talking about you? And Chuck is going, no, I got $3 billion. He's talking about you. That's $500 million. That's
exactly what
you
that
got
was.
the $500 million, Adam. No. I think it's over you. What if it's all of us? You know, like that is what he's doing. And they brought up, and this is funny. This is a really, really good example. Brought up this new plot, and it's really an extension of a plot they've had for a while about they want to kill Donald Trump. Okay, and there's still questions about whether one of the would-be assassins had some tie to Iran. I personally think that's bullshit. I think
it was their original setup. I think the original. You look at it. They arrest the so-called Iranian.
We're going to blame Iran for killing him. They were going to blame Iran.
They arrest him. Remember, 3 days before the attempted assassassination, they arrested him. It just didn't get disclosed until later.
Yep.
Then the attempted assassination. I think the plan was.
He missed. He missed.
There at the RNC talking to people. Mike Pompeo was running around. Like if Pompeo wants to know why he's suddenly fully on the outs with Trump, Trump had picked up on Pompeo.
Stupid? You think we're stupid?
Exactly. But Pompeo went around telling delegates from Iowa 2 weeks before the convention that he was going to be the VP nominee.
Yeah.
And it isn't because he thought Trump was going to be the presidential nominee. The thought process was
Trump won't be here anymore.
Blame Iran. Nominate Nikki Haley as the rally around Trump, defend America against the evil Iranian regime. Yep. Pompeo would be VP. They would have a perfect win-win situation. They missed, and they've been trying to blame Iran ever since.
Yep.
I mean, Trump's going to be realistic with Iran. He knows that economically he can limit Iran, and that the way to deal with Iran, like he's dealing with most of these other countries, is economic leverage. That you don't need to get stuck in another Middle Eastern war. I mean, they really think that they can sucker him into believing that another Middle Eastern war by constantly saying Iran is out to kill him. When he knows, he said it in some private settings. He knows exactly who tried to kill him.
He knows who tried to kill him.
That's why his first phone call, one of his first phone calls after the assassination was to Robert Kennedy. That wasn't a coincidence. That was, okay, screw these guys. I'm going to the wall.
Damn, you were right. They are going to kill me.
Exactly.
No, I'm serious.
And I should call a guy that knows a little bit about this sort of thing. And then J.D. Vance was soon thereafter. That he was like, okay, the gloves are off. And Musk realized the gloves are off, so Musk joins in because they went after Musk. They probably did try to assassinate Musk and just failed. Absolutely.
You're going to kill me. You're going to get this handsome blue-eyed son of a bitch over here. Ha! Ha!
Exactly.
Which is exactly what you and I have been telling him to do for 2 years.
And then
now.
The next protege,
somebody who is acceptable.
After J.D. Vance is going to be Barron Trump. Barron, more than even more so than Don Jr., is deep. Don Jr. likes the role he's in. But the kid, I've talked to people that personally talk to him. Look at him holding court at a table with like Rubio, Secretary of Defense, Jeff Bezos, whoever it was, all these big names. And he's sitting there, this 19-year-old kid, explaining the world to him. Just like he was like, how you doing, Joe? When he was walking past him, and how you doing, Kamala, at the inauguration. Imagine the cojones you have to have as a 19-year-old kid, right? But this is a 19-year-old kid who had his own bedroom raided by the FBI. This is a 19-year-old kid that saw them go after his mother in nasty, vicious ways. And he saw him try to kill his father. So he's going to always, like the old proverb, if you want to understand Robert Kennedy Jr., you can understand this proverb. But it's my own life story that they say in the Bible, the sins of the father will be visited upon the son.
Yeah.
I always like to say the reverse of that. The sins against the father will be long remembered by the son.
I think be around for a while, Robert. He'll be around.
People think it's just going to be 4 years of Trump. It's going to be Trump. It's going to be Vance, and then Barron Trump after that. We're watching a live political revolution in America.
I was gonna pull it up real quick. I don't think I could put it together that fast and look unless we look specific, but I do want to credit at least some of it to Barron Trump, which is how his approval rating has met some resistance over the last 5 or 6 days. I would say it's still very high, but it's met some resistance, and it's coming first from those older seniors that aren't super seniors, but 65 to 74, and getting more liberal, right? And then the 50 to 64 is still solidly Trump, but you have some wiggle there. 18 to 29 really has not budged. And they weren't as high as some of the others before, but they haven't budged. And I feel like the TikTok thing was politically smart as hell. But it's more than that. There's more than that going on. And you cannot say that Barron didn't have any role in this whatsoever. Because I got to tell you, Barron's looking at podcasts like you, like me, like Charlie, like others, and he's looking at those numbers, and he believed those numbers, and he knew those numbers were real. And he was like, you know what, Dad, I think you are more popular with young people, and I think you got to go on these shows. You got to forget about Face the Nation. You got to forget about the stupid bullshit nobody watches anymore, Dad. And you got to go on these shows. By the way, his name is Joe Rogan. Get your ass on that podcast. Like, that is what he did. And you can't take away from him that he has played almost no role until he came in and had an influence on this very specific and very influential part of his dad's reelection. I mean, so big. Even, Don Jr. got it. He got the podcast. But I mean, he didn't know all of these podcasts, Robert. Barron
convinced them that this is the political zeitgeist.
Yes.
And then the second aspect is he convinced them that crypto was a play, because Trump just 2 years ago had a boomer attitude. He's like, crypto's fake. It's some sort of computer algorithm, whatever. Yeah. And the son was like, no,
that's
this
not
is
real money.
That's
not real money.
This is a space you can really do well in. If you reach out to them, that you may find a very listening ear. Because the big mistake big tech made was not realizing this Democratic Party is a fascist party.
Yeah.
So even though big tech aligned with the Democratic Party, that wasn't enough for the Democratic Party. Like, people forget about the fascists as they were socialists, but they believed in indirect socialism. So the company would nominally be private, like under Hitler's Germany, but behind the scenes, the government controlled how much profit you got to keep, what you could charge for your product, what you could buy, who you had to work, who you could not work, who could do this, who could do that. It was basically government control, just indirect, because it looked better for the local populace if they're still going to, Michael's company or whatever. But they were this is what the current Democratic Party believes. So they weren't satisfied with big tech being under their thumb. Big tech had to take directions at all times from them. Couldn't budge a minute. And because they ran into semi-autistic personalities like Musk, who are like, why would I do that? And then they said, well, here's why, because we're going to put you under criminal investigation. We're going to put you under SEC investigation. We're going to put you under civil rights investigation. We're going to put you under IRS investigation. See how you like that. And Musk was like, okay, I'll just buy Twitter and then get your biggest agencies and expose you to the world. It was
start a super PAC and go get those non-voters this crazy guy keeps talking about. Because that's what he did. Exactly. And I can see it.
And also, it more normalized Trump with the whole, because so many of these young people grew up on podcasts, grew up liking crypto, grew up liking these, Musk has a huge support within a certain constituency. When these guys are vouching for Trump, it changes the ball games of how they perceive Trump. And so it further facilitated this. But I mean, Trump's doing these press conferences at a masterful level. I like the idea of him not doing it from the big press desk. I like him doing it in front of the Oval Office.
Yeah, me
too. It reinforces that message much better. The only thing I would add is, why not Trump create his own podcast? Like, maybe once a week, talk directly to
I can't remember how long it was, how long ago it was. It was during the first administration where I suggested what is a modern fireside chat. There is no reason why a president cannot do a Friday night podcast where he lays out his own, nobody stopped Roosevelt from doing it, and he's not doing a show or having sponsors or advertisers and making money. He doesn't need those little 30, 45-second things he puts up on Truth. That's great. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about him in a setting like he is right now, right? And it's the president talking about what he's been doing for the last week. That is so smart to do. And Roosevelt knew that he needed to make a connection with the American public directly, even though he had most of the media on his side. He has none of them on his side. So why would you not do that? And ultimately, Roosevelt created an almost father of the nation status of himself doing those fireside chats. It was huge. It was so huge. Here's what, let me play this though. You're going to laugh. You're all going to laugh. Here's what Trump said. They're like, hey, what about this new plot to kill you? You know? And he basically says, well, actually they say, what if they succeeded? All right. And that's what he's speaking to. All right. Oh, sorry. I did it the other way. Here we go.
Why sit here unhappy to sign it? It's Iran and their proxies who threatened to retaliate against you and your team by killing you guys for taking out Soleimani.
Well, they haven't done that, and that would be a terrible thing for them to do. Not because of me. If they did that, they would be obliterated. That'd be the end. I've left instructions.
I've left instructions.
Get obliterated. There won't be anything left. And they shouldn't be able to do it. And Biden should have said that, but he never did. I don't know why. Lack of intelligence, perhaps.
All right, before we finish, the lack of intelligence, perhaps. I see Robert laughing hysterically too. I'll finish the rest of it. I just want to bring up, before this, he was talking about what happened with Iran, difference they, in how they were treated by the U.S. under him and Biden. And his first go-to, which is Trump, textbook Trump, is that it's not just the sanctions against Iran. The reason they didn't work with other presidents, guys, is because, and the oil was, that's it. That's what he's talking about. The reason it didn't work is because no other president was ever willing to eliminate effectively what are called special exemptions. Yeah. So you tell an ally like Britain or Germany, you're a big one, France and China even, which is remarkable, Robert, they'd have even end up on this list. But you would tell them, we're ending the special exemption that allows you to do business with them, even though those sanctions are on oil exports. So effectively, you're no longer allowed to buy Iranian oil. Biden came in and it was week one almost, or week two, something like that. And he ended those and he reinstituted those special exemptions. So where did they get the money for the October terror attack on Israel? They got it from Joe Biden. They got it from you, guys. They got it from you. All right.
And released all frozen funds.
And
billions of dollars. I mean, after Obama, sent the billions of dollars and pallets of cash to them, that they did this. I mean, the Iranians only respect power. They don't respect weakness. They never have. It's for whatever reason, it's in the Arab Islamic DNA. I mean, I think because of how those civilizations came to conquer, came to dominate, certain military tactics ended up being embedded in the culture because the people with power reflected that. Because that hasn't always been Arab culture. Persian culture used to be famous for its tolerance, for its intelligence, for its math, its science, its art, its literature. I mean, Patrick Bet-David kind of represents that old tradition, that negotiation. I mean, they love to negotiate just to negotiate. One of the funniest things, most fun things for them to do at a bazaar, at a trading place, was to not list a price to negotiate. It was dishonorable not to try to negotiate. And so that's the sort of nature
irresponsible. It was irresponsible not to try.
And they couldn't respect Biden at all. And Trump wants them to know that he's not a warmonger who's eager to have conflict, who will avoid conflict if at all practicable or achievable. But that he wants to have this sense that of the madman theory, like Nixon himself employed, but with less success than Trump has, which is that maybe I'll just nuke you if I really get upset. So that creates enough of a variable where they can't quite read him. And because all these professional political class people, including these days, even the ones in Iran, that so many of the people that have come up within their current power structure are people that are permanent political class people. They don't have real world balanced experience. And so they really don't know how to read Trump. I mean, Trump is really not that hard to read if you have a sense of who he is and you have enough diverse life experience. But because there are so many of the people around the world, that's how Putin can know how to negotiate with Trump much better than anybody else. He knows not to take the bait on certain things. He knows not to get into a public criticism, public
when
fight
the flatter. When the flatter. Yeah.
And instead, just compliment them. Say, yeah, they really screwed you here. And hey, they really screwed you here. And
the world wouldn't be at war if they didn't rob it from Trump.
Putin authorized one of his high-ranking ambassadors to publicly say that Biden had tried to kill Trump. They tried to, they're putting it on the Biden administration, the attempted assassination of President Trump. So there's a smart way to handle this and a dumb way to handle. Now, my own view is Iran will be smart with this. I mean, Iran's many things, but historically not dumb. That Iran will recognize this, and Iran is in trouble. Their domestic economy is squeezed. Yeah. Losing their ally Assad in Syria is a major blow. They put a lot of money into Hezbollah. Hezbollah depended on Syrian aid. That is now gone.
And the ally in the White House.
Exactly. I mean, so those dynamics are no longer present. Now, one of the things that they're keeping a lid on, that I'm hoping that they continue to purge employees, is the State Department has been filled with Islamists and Arabists for a long time. Before that, it was filled with communists back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. That's why we lost China. That's why we gave away everything to the Soviet Union, is because communist State Department advisors were saying this was the right strategy. You've also had a bunch of Arabists and Islamists that's what a lot of the Jewish voters didn't realize until the inconsistencies on the Israeli war started coming out of the Biden administration. They didn't, and then a bunch of people were going to protest and walk out. And all of a sudden, you had a lot of older Jewish voters suddenly realize, there is an Arabist Islamist wing in the State Department. It's always been there. The CIA was founded by anti-Jewish, anti-Israeli people. Go back and look. A lot of the Kermit Roosevelt was part of a front organization that was anti-Israel that was secretly funded by the CIA for 15 years. They all thought they were going to be Lawrence of Arabia. They grew up on that book.
I was just going to say, which is why they actually, they really did have that worldview. They didn't get, we were not always pro-Israel like this. We weren't. No. The British kind of handed us their problem, but they handed the wrong people that problem.
What Israel did smart was Israel realized midway through they should be on the U.S. side rather than the Soviet Union side in the Cold War. Soviet Union never forgave them. The hard left never forgave them. That's why the hard left to this day is anti-Israel. They don't realize they've inherited a message that was from the Soviet Union about Israel in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, we did a show about this a while ago. You remember that?
It was smart of Israel. Now, Israel might have stolen our nuclear secrets. Probably true. But that was smart on their part, the Israeli part. But what Trump is Trump wants geopolitical realism. He wants balance in the region. He wants less war. He wants American interests protected. And people should ask themselves, why is on the top 10 or top 15 recipient list of U.S. aid Yemen? Why is Yemen on that list? Yemen, a country that's been effectively taken over by hardcore anti-American terrorist organizations. Yemen that has a communist history before that. It's because you have look at the guy that was just caught in Asia telling secrets to Iran. We have a bunch of these people throughout the State Department. We got a bunch of people that are anti-American that have weaseled their way into the State Department. And I hope the next stage of what they do in these purges is they purge some of these people, because we have a lot of traitors inside our own government.
Look at this.
The big ones are still in the United States Senate, though.
This is brand new, by the way. Trump is calling back every single one of them. Yeah, it says all of them. Oh my God. He's calling back all USAID staff, USAID staff that are overseas, on overseas side. Every single one of them. I needed like 2 minutes to make sure that was right. Every single one. Every single one. So,
this is the nerve center of the deep state.
Oh my God, he's purging
it has been the nerve center. Most Americans had no idea what was going on, but it has been the nerve center of the deep state for the last 2 decades. That once the CIA got exposed by the Church Committee in the 70s, they knew they needed to shift their money to a different front. And so they shifted the money to USAID. And nobody paid attention because it's called USAID, right? Yeah. Oh, it's just helping some poor people somewhere learn to farm.
That's so right. It's so benevolent.
No, it's helping the planter class go back and kill all the peasants that took their land. That's what USAID
looks like. It looks like they're sending money to news organizations too.
They're doing it all over the place. The
BBC is on here.
There were censorship operations all around the world being funded by USAID, censoring U.S. media, censoring Donald Trump, censoring us with our own taxpayer dollars.
You and me.
Yeah.
both on that damn spreadsheet. We're
Right.
both. Oh my God. This is let me ask you this.
But now you know why Biden made sure to pardon his family on the way out. He was like, Trump might expose all kinds of things. Let's make sure we get everybody down here.
Let me ask you this, man. We argued that a Trump 2.0, I honestly always thought that it could be more dangerous to the deep state than a consecutive Trump term. I always thought that, because especially one where in between you came after his family, you came after his businesses, you tried to ruin him, you tried to imprison him. He would have died in jail. I mean, now, of course, the New York Judge Merchan, Godspeed, sir, on your second term. That little bitch. He would have put him behind bars for the rest of his life. He would have died there. You know that. I know that.
Oh, yes.
But now he's not in that consecutive second term. He's going gangbusters. What do you think this so far has been compared to your expectations?
Well, I mean, to give ourselves a shout out, we said that to a degree, Trump losing 2020 in the way that it was done, especially, would make Trump a much stronger second term president 4 years later.
We said that immediately.
And we compared it to Andrew Jackson. I mean, they stole it from Andrew Jackson in 1824. Andrew Jackson wasn't ready to change the world in 1824. He, by golly, was by 1828. And I know some people say, "Oh, see, Barnes loves the Indian Removal Act." That's not what I'm talking about. That was happening no matter what, whether Jackson was there or not there. That was happening.
Jackson didn't, right?
That was already long in motion. What Jackson did was stop the second bank of the United States. What Jackson did was stop the early Federal Reserve. And what happened between 1828 and 1860? What Jackson unleashed? The biggest working class prosperity in the history of the world up to that point. Go back and trace it. You can look at Power, Liberty and Power, a biography of Andrew Jackson that goes into
one man, one vote.
Exactly. The working class, it took off under Andrew Jackson because he refused to allow central banking to take over the economy. That was the thing that was the reason why they stopped him in 1824. But he was in a much better position to do it. And think about it. He built loyalties in what was called Jacksonian America. I always call it the reverse L, from eastern Oklahoma all the way through to western North Carolina, all the way up to the Black Hills and the Black Country of Pennsylvania and eastern Ohio. Those people would vote Democrat thanks largely to Andrew Jackson's ancestral legacy until Trump. That's how they were voting. I mean, they started to deviate a little here and there.
Point. You got a really good point there. You do.
Almost 200 years. That's what
even
Jackson
Missouri,
built.
even as far north,
is on the verge of building the exact same thing. And it's probably not a coincidence. Some of his best voters are from old Jacksonian America.
Leah, and I wonder, as far as like what, my role in all this, like what I'm going to do here in the next couple of years, Robert. I just don't know why the hell anybody would give two shits anymore about what half of these pollsters have to say. Like, I really don't. I don't think right now. You go to Real Clear Politics, folks, and go look at his approval rating. Now go compare that to my polling. My polling hasn't changed. Like, disapproval did tick above 40, but like he's still he's still double digit approve, which is insane.
It's been almost impossible in the modern era.
It's insane.
I mean, it's been very difficult when politics calcified in 2000. Nobody's consistently been in the mid 50s. Least of all Trump, who's received the most. Trump's had the most negatives of anybody anywhere in terms of media coverage.
And he won. Yeah, right.
And yet he's in the 50s. I mean, Trump in the high 40s is DOA for the Democratic Party.
Hispanics.
Trump in the 50s is existential to the future of the Democratic Party.
Let me look up. This is brand new, guys. I just want to pull up where Trump is with Hispanics. No, I don't need to include all variables. Hold on. I just put it up there. Give me 1 second. I'm going to put it in there right now, and I'm going to look. You know what, by the way, we never stopped asking about the confidence in his ability to handle certain problems. And I really think that's what's going on. Now, the longevity of all of this, I do think will hinge on his long-term achievements, which is why it really is so important that he deliver. And if he does, oh my God, you ready? Somewhat approve. strongly approve. With Hispanics, 30.3. Somewhat approve is still 23. So he's ticked down a hair.
I mean,
But he's at
all those Democratic
53.3 approval with Hispanics.
All
Still,
those Democratic majority books entirely based on
On
Hispanic voting being 70-30 Democrat.
dead.
I mean, that's gone.
Over.
That is gone. And
Gone.
Trump is killing it. I mean, Hispanics might be voting Republican by 20 points in 10 years. That's where Trump is trending with these voter groups. I mean, you know, it's going to be ironic. It'll be Democrats begging for more white votes.
Yep, it is.
They're going to be
It is.
losing. They're bleeding non-white votes every which direction. And there's only so many white professional class people to get. And even some of them are like, I don't want to get taxed out of existence. I don't want to have my daughter have to compete with a man in a local high school sport. I don't want my 6-year-old being read a book by a man in a dress, or being asked to sit on his lap. I don't want drag queen story time, right? Even there's erosion even with those voter groups. And so Democratic Party is in as bad a position, honestly, I think, ever. Because even in 72, when they're at the nadir of presidential support, or 84, they had huge congressional majorities. So I mean, they weren't, and they controlled most governorships, they controlled most state legislatures. So that they were still, in real power.
When they were in the period
1946, they briefly lost the House and the Senate, but they're losing whole key voter groups that their entire party has predicated their future on.
When they were in the doldrums, Robert. When they were in the presidential doldrums. Oh, they can't win a presidential race. They've lost, 5 out of the last 6 presidential races, and of them, every one of the popular votes, like Reagan. But Reagan alone was getting 22% of the Democratic vote. Like Reagan alone. And the difference here, and that's, I think, the ultimate question. I think Republicans may have, because of Trump's popularity, if this persists, they may have one more election to stomp out the Mitch McConnells. And if they can do that, Democrats are.
I mean, they might pick up seats
in
in 2026. Which is otherwise, it's otherwise unheard of. But I mean, if the Trump continues with his success, and they steadily embrace the Trump brand, then they're in a position to dominate American politics for a generation. I mean, that's the kind of power we're talking about. And by the way, it's not limited to the United States. Germany, of all places, that has been terrified of its own shadow after, understandably, the World War II and World War I, that wouldn't embrace any populist right-wing figure because supposedly that's associated with their past when it's not really.
Right.
Is looking at the
fascism
AFD.
is left-wing, folks. Fascism is a left-wing collectivist socialist ideology.
Exactly. Look, you have racial socialists who are the Nazis. You have national socialists who are the Italian fascists, and then you got the old international socialists who are the communists. I mean, they're all socialists. That's why they hate each other, because they all agree. They're all arguing for the same political space.
Yeah, they're all arguing for the same cutout. Exactly.
Whereas, if in Germany they're rebelling so much against immigration, AFD may do well. Exactly. It is surging in ways, and I'm hearing it from a range of voters. I'm fortunate in that I have a wide range of friends and family that cover really almost every part of the political spectrum. The only people holding to the Democratic Party are old school liberal Democrats. Yeah. And even they have been disappointed at how Bernie and Warren acted in the last session.
You think this is a joke?
Yeah.
All right.
It has to be.
My brother
all those DeSantis trolls telling us all that stuff. I mean, those are some good times. I mean, what Trump has told DeSantis could have been VP. He chose to blow it up.
You remember what those sons of bitches did to me? And then Steve Cortez is like, I don't understand why you won't take a call from me. Yeah. Steve,
you can't sell out, bro. You know,
bro.
Or at least if you sell out,
communications director for that PAC. You were the communications director for the PAC.
Correct. Exactly.
Don't tell me you didn't know what they were putting out.
One of my favorite actions of Trump has been, Mike Pompeo was still telling people in November that he was going to be part of the administration. He was the one who leaked that. Trump not only said, no way you're part of the administration, I think he took away his security clearance or something else.
I think he did. I think he did take Pompeo's security clearance, brother.
Yeah, or took away his Secret Service. It was one of those. He was like, I mean, Trump was like, I know what you tried to do, motherfucker. I mean, Trump was being indirect about it, but he's making clear. But this is the Trump we wanted. This is the Trump we elected. And it's the Trump we're getting, by golly. And it is a beautiful, beautiful thing to watch.
He's taken no meetings from Condoleezza Rice or the Bush family this time, folks. I mean, back then he really wanted to be, and I think this is Trump. He wants to be a peacemaker. Even in this last speech, he said, I will be known as a peacemaker and a unifier. But he has concluded that in order to really do that, he can't do it the way they pretend it happens. It doesn't, because peacemaking and unifying to these people means selling out and screwing you. And to him, he's decided he's going to take your side and he's going to pray and bank and he's gambling that enough of you are going to see it, that's what's going to unify, and that's it. And honestly, that was always the right call, Robert. That was always the right move. Paul Ryan was never going to come around. I'm telling you, Laura Ingraham, once upon a time, I'm not once upon a time. Perhaps once you will grow a spine and confirm this story, because I know you can. All right. Yeah. I'm just going to say that you were in the Mayflower. You know what I'm talking about. They were talking so much shit behind his back. They all shook his hand. They were like, oh, yeah, you were right. The American people they want that agenda. We will get this border secure. We're going to renegotiate trade deals, Mr. President. You're absolutely right. We got your back 100%. He got up and walked away, and they laughed. They were like, what a fucking moron. What a moron. That's how he started his administration. And Laura, you know what? Shame on you for not telling that story, because you had it better, as I understand it. You heard it better than I did. And you didn't tell anybody on your Fox News show. You didn't tell anyone that.
The other thing is how irrelevant Murdoch is discovering he is.
Well, now it's too late for her. It's too late.
I think Sean Hannity's kind of always known he's quasi irrelevant. Rupert Murdoch. Rupert Murdoch chose Hannity to promote so he could say, "Look at how great I, Roger Ailes, am." Because look at this idiot, I made him popular. That's why he picked Hannity, because Hannity wasn't Tucker Carlson. Because no one would credit Hannity with that natural talent. They would credit Roger Ailes with making him the star that he became. Yeah. But what they don't realize is their influence is gone. They're DOA. I mean, it's
once the boomers are gone,
room is finally rotating people out, finally rotating people in. And while JD is a genius and a master at exposing Democratic interlocutors for the media, I agree with you. There's no more need for that. No. That these people are legacy dead. Let them die in isolation.
Thank you. Why would? And I love JD.
It's because JD knew he could sit her down, smack her around, and it would become a meme.
And I know, and I got that.
He's like, I just don't. He was quoting Gone with the Wind. I just don't care, Margaret. I don't give a damn.
Yeah, and I got that from them.
But we don't need more of it. Well, once every 3 months, go in and humiliate them. That's fine. But do it once every 3 months, not every Sunday. We don't need Trump people sitting down with these bogus crap fake media on a Sunday morning.
And Robert, certainly not as your first interviews, because believe me, I got the message from them, from that loud and clear, what you just said, because he knew he would go and bitch smack her around and make a fool out of her. And I said, I get that.
Especially these women interlocutors that think they can go one-on-one with JD Vance. It was
annihilated her.
You could tell the media quit, and all the senators were afraid to raise any substantive question about vaccines with Robert Kennedy. Because they're like, we're going to get humiliated on a national stage, and we don't want to get humiliated on a national stage. So we'll talk in vague banalities.
But don't resuscitate him, Robert. Don't give him mouth to mouth. Don't resuscitate him. Let him die. He flap like fishes.
Bernie and Warren ruined their careers over that confirmation hearing. They will never recover. When the number one thing that comes out of a confirmation hearing is that a senator you thought was a populist is on Big Pharma's pocket, that's not a win for the Democratic Party. And they seem to be unaware of it. They seem to be, it's like Harry Ensign. He's like shocked. He's like, How are
I know.
all these controversial people popular?
These are the
That's where the American
controversial
people is, Harry.
These are the controversial. They're controversial, Harry, because the town doesn't want them, because the American public does, because everything in the interest of that town is against the interest of the American public. But why can't you understand that? They are
Well,
the most
you can understand
disconnected
it.
people on
Hey,
planet Earth.
Harry's busy reading Nate Silver's fake briefs.
Oh my
That
God.
but once again,
Ensign aggregate.
all of them got the election wrong again. Remember, Nate Silver only agreed to take one bet, that Florida would not go Republican by 8 or more points.
Oh, you just reminded me.
And he lost that one. He couldn't even. He agrees to take one bet ever because he's such a wuss, and he even loses that one. I mean, that's what a career loser looks like.
You just reminded me, by the way. I'm not doing Fireball. Okay? You remember this. You know I have to do this. It's been weeks in the making. Laura's like, if you're going to do it with a nice tourney. Okay? So that's what I'm going to do. Here is, oh, God. It's too early for this.
And by the way, I would say I did call the popular vote in August.
Yes, I know.
I called it in August before anybody else was calling the popular vote. All the crap I took. Barnes thinks Trump's going to win the popular vote. That's how delusional Barnes is. Well, all those people were cashing that bet because it was 20-1 at the time I gave it out.
You did. You said that, Robert. And even when my own polling said that was going to happen, because, folks, we talk to you guys, but then, of course, we talk privately. And I'm like, you know what's going to happen? At the end, it's going to swing back to maybe like a tie. And then she'll win by a half a point, but he's still going to win 3-12. 3-12. That's what I really thought was going to happen until the final 2 weeks. And then during the final 2 weeks, I said, shit, I'm going to be stuck with a glass in my hand at the end of this thing because I'm going to be wrong. I knew it was going to happen. However, I did, I don't know where the tweet is. I was supposed to bring it up and I'm supposed to find something nice to say about Nate Silver. So I'm supposed to take a shot and say Barnes was right about the popular vote. And then I'm supposed to say something nice about Nate
could
Silver.
Say, Nate Silver's best political career was when he temporarily retired from it.
I had one that's better though, and it's honestly a little bit more generic. All right, Nate Silver eventually got mad, and he started laying into Democrats about how they don't listen to issues. All right, and that if they continue doing, and then by the way, less than 48 hours later, he made a stupid comment about how early it is. But if this continues, because of Democratic advantage in midterm voting, they may have a good year. And it was obviously an about face from what he said before, which was that Democrats did not seem yet to understand why they lost the election. And if this continues, they're going to do more damage to themselves. So here's my compliment. Nate Silver is not always retarded 100% of the time. Okay? So, even if he is a retard fraud for 99.999 repeating, once in a while, that little blip kicks in and he says something halfway intelligent. Also, Barnes was right. Trump won the popular vote. Go find it yourself. Bottoms up.
I don't know if you saw the somebody did an AI deep fake version of Trump. And it's Trump signing an executive order saying, yes, you can now refer to your friends and some others as retarded, as gay, as this. It's a fake executive order of Trump, which was great.
You can say the word retard. Listen, I don't take backseat to anybody. Like there's a word and a way. There's a word. Retarded has a meaning, and there's a way to use it in a decent meaning, in a decent way, and there's a way to be just flat out mean. My brother-in-law is autistic. It doesn't mean I'm not going stepbrother-in-law, but he's my brother-in-law. I love him to death. You're not going to tell me when I can and cannot use the word retarded. All right. I can't say them. I'm not going to out them, but I have family members who are gay. You're not going to tell me when I can and cannot say the word gay. Robert, screw that. There's Cynic. I knew you were going to pop up, Cynic. It was on him. He caused all this. I knew. I'm like, where is he? I hope he's here to see it because I know I owed it to him. I know I did, and then he popped up, but modification accepted because the Nate Silver thing. The I couldn't find Fireball, brother. I really couldn't. I know I saw it at like the gas station up the road.
They're subject to a suit because some of what they were selling didn't have the actual alcohol in it, and they were selling as alcohol, so they got subject to a massive law. So I don't know what the status of that suit is.
That makes sense because the lady, I know I saw it there 100 times, and the lady was like, "Nah, they took all the Fireball out of here."
They're probably going to restock the bottle in order to get her to deal with the lawsuit because what it was is they were selling it in grocery stores, and
they're gone.
And yeah, it's because
Publix, they're gone.
There was no alcohol in them, but they weren't disclosing that, so people thought, "Oh, I'm getting a little Fireball." It was the
hell were they drinking?
It was the cinnamon whatever without the alcohol. I mean, can you imagine? Well, yeah. I mean, what kind of hardcore alky do you got to be to try to drink that? Think you're getting some alcohol? It's like drinking. It's like drinking that fake beer, the beer that has no alcohol in it.
O'Doul's.
Yeah, and that kind of stuff. And I always remember the scene from Wolf of Wall Street where he's explaining he's drinking beer without alcohol. Like, but you can still get drunk from it, right? He goes, "Well, why in the world would you drink it?" So that was a good conversation.
That's a great movie. Not long ago, maybe like a month ago, I was watching that movie and my kid jumped in. I'm like, oh, shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it was the scene where she's mad at him and he doesn't know, or she doesn't know that there's a camera in the Teddy's eye, you know? And I'm like, and I know it's coming because I've seen it before. So I'm getting ready to laugh, but of course she's doing what she's doing. And like my 15-year-old son walks in and I'm like, because I don't care, but Laura's probably right. She's like, don't show him things. He's not old enough yet like that. Of course he's going to see things, obviously. There's nothing I can do to stop it, but I don't have to encourage it. And my daughter is like, Robert, I don't know what I did. I don't think I did anything. I think it was Laura. I have a beautiful, talented, smart Christian girl. And I really don't deserve it.
How did she do with that competition?
Robert, she freaking won. Nobody wins. Nobody in from our academy wins that competition because it's big, number one. So honestly, when you're a judge and you're judging 190 solos, it's not the same as when you're judging 20 really good ones and you can still kind of like put a thought together. So nobody really goes there expecting to win. And her duet did, and she did. And it was like, what? When Laura texted me, I'm like, no, she didn't. Because the talent there is crazy. Dude, the guy from Zombie was there last year. Like, it's a big deal. You guys know what I'm talking. Disney's on. Yeah, they meet a lot of people.
So you didn't have to go full Italian on the judges in case they went the wrong way.
Yeah, of course not. Although I'm not really. I go to there's one that's kind of local, and I go there, and I'm the biggest, loudest mouth in the place. You're supposed to have etiquette, and you're not supposed to, scream the way I scream. So I always look forward to that because I do anyway, and I embarrass her, and she loves it. She loves it. But my wife goes to the rest, and it's hard. It's a lot of work, man. She's awesome. I don't really know what I did to deserve a daughter like this. I certainly did not treat young women, all right, with the way that I would expect men to treat my daughter. I was a scoundrel, and thank God took pity on me, I guess, I don't know. Well, that's not true. I always treated them nice. I was just not, I was until I met Laura.
Right.
And I've always ever just been in love with one girl. Sorry if you're out there, ladies, and you know me, and you knew that because I told you. All right. I'm only in love with one woman, so don't expect anything else. And it's true, though, and she's just such a great kid. And she has no interest in any of that crap. She wants to dance.
Oh.
She wants to get into a good school. And that's it.
Speaking of gentlemanly discipline, did you see Robert Kennedy not take the bait with Jeff Bezos' wife?
Oh,
I mean, I'll give him credit. He was like, he kept those eyes this way. Zuckerberg could help him. So
they did that on purpose. You think that wasn't on purpose? Come on.
Absolutely. They were subjecting him to honey trap after honey trap. Remember that journalist who got fired because she kept trying to seduce him? And he was like, please stop texting me.
They think they know the man he was and the man he's going to, and they don't believe in people's capacity to change at all. And
they didn't realize, that relationship with Cheryl Hines is very tight. I've seen it up in person, and they really didn't understand who Kennedy was. They didn't understand his background. They didn't understand They just didn't understand him, and
Yeah.
they also couldn't understand him because almost everybody else that's named Kennedy has been willing to cash in on that name for fame and money, like Caroline Kennedy and others, and for
Yeah.
power.
Yeah.
Robert Kennedy was the closest to his father
Yeah.
and his uncle, and he was someone who's willing to sacrifice his life, literally risk his
Yep.
life.
He did.
For the changes.
He
He's someone
did.
who, I mean, he could be worth $100 million now if he wanted to be. He chose not to go down that path. I mean, because he saw these kids getting hurt, nobody was paying attention to him, so he decided to fight for them. So that's who Bobby Kennedy's been. And
Robert,
they thought
think
they
about
could
this.
trap him 100 different ways, and every single one failed.
But think about this too, Robert. He was doing what he was doing during a time when there were political candidates, the leading political candidate, being shot at. He had no security whatsoever, except for what he. Well, that's not
Secret
true.
Service
He wound up
wouldn't-
having to pay for it. But that's my
Secret
point.
Service wouldn't provide any protection.
It would not provide
They
protection.
sent an
He still
assassin.
did
and
it.
a week after Joe Biden denied his second request for Secret Service, somebody sent an assassin in dressed up as a security guard that got caught at the door. But one block from where his father was assassinated, by whom? Somebody that was a fake security guard who got in that night. So, I mean, and that's classic Joe Biden, by the way, to send a nasty message like that. Kennedy's response was to double down. I mean, it's just so unique person, unique personality, unique. I mean, I think there's some people I still have some doubts about in Trump's cabinet. Like, I'm not sure. Like, I want to see
who? Like who?
If Brooke Rollins at
Yep.
Ag,
That's who I have a
if
problem
other
with, too.
people vouch
Yep.
for her, okay.
Yep.
But I want to see it. Like, right, if she's got an easy opportunity, she could step up, and the first thing she could do, or one of the first things she could do, is publicize shutting down the federal case against Amos Miller. Stop. And Amish votes help put the Republicans in positions of power. Guaranteed that Trump was going to win election either way, no matter what happened elsewhere. Those voters are put their confidence and faith in Trump. And part of that was that they would not be harassed for farming the way they have farmed and their fathers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers before them have farmed. And
let's just call it right now, Robert. Let's just call we calling her to shut this damn thing down.
Look, if
prove
Rollins
Ned Ryan wrong. Prove Ned Ryan wrong, bro. Prove Ned Ryan wrong. Because
Secretary Rollins was part of that America First group, but not Stephen Miller's group. It was part of the group that was connected to Rick Perry and Big Oil.
Yes.
And so a lot of people were skeptical of what their real intentions were. If she wants to show that this is going to be a Trump agriculture department respecting small farmers and food freedom, very easy way, publicize shutting down the case against Amos Miller. And then second, make it clear the FDA created its own fake law against raw milk. Congress has never passed a law banning raw milk. That was made up by the FDA. The FDA admitted they didn't have a constitutional basis for it in court when they were sued previously. Come out, and the second thing you do and say, there is no FDA ban on raw milk. That's up to Congress if they want to pass that or not. But we were never supposed to be in the legislation business, and we're going to allow the milk that people have been drinking for centuries in human existence. We're going to allow people to purchase that across state lines without any limitation. That is not our job to control that. And then third, come out for what used to be law from 1905 to 1967, which was right in federal law. It said that if you buy food directly from a farmer, that farmer does not require a permit from the federal government before you're allowed to buy food directly from the farmer. That was the law until 1967. So come out for that small, simple, elemental change in the law that will restore food freedom. And that way it's good policy, but two, it's very good politics.
Popular.
And so we'll see if she's sincere. Otherwise, there's concern that Rollins is secretly in the pocket of Big Ag. And when the very first thing she talks about is forcing people to get caged pig animals food, that's a big Amos Miller's pigs ain't in no cage, right? I mean, it's only big corporate farms that are doing that. Right now, she's only speaking out for big corporate farm, and that would be a betrayal of President Trump's election. So Rollins is one I'm paying a lot of attention to. Is she sincere or is she not? We don't know. Some people around her have vouched for her to me. I just haven't seen anything in her record or legacy that would suggest she would be on the right side of this. Let's find out. Did she lie to President Trump to get the job, or is she in fact sincere? And she can evidence that sincerity very quickly, like Elon Musk has done with Doge going after USAID.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I had people on both sides of this. Some that were like, "No, just give her a chance. She's a convert. She's, and then others, because it's not even what I personally think. They know that I'm going to be true to the people we talk to every night, and I'm gonna say, like, I don't think this person reflects the sovereign's agenda. I just don't. And then I've had other people tell me, "Don't listen to those people. She's full of shit." So I've had it from both sides, Robert. I really don't know, and time will tell. So that's a perfect way for time to tell,
It's
right?
an
You
easy
can
one.
ignore
You
this.
take a case
So
that's a
easy.
popular case,
So
but the
easy.
state courts of Pennsylvania have agreed that the state of Pennsylvania went too far. Even Democratic courts have said she went too far. Have said the state went too far. This is
Yeah.
a no-brainer. Don't make the mistake of the Pennsylvania Attorney General, who's busy cutting off the future of his career, wants to be governor. That ain't never going to happen as long as you keep persecuting people like Amos Miller with the
Yeah.
Attorney General's office,
Yeah.
like his office is doing. Be smart. And if you're smart, you not only get Amish votes, food freedom. That's like, I mean, even you were startled by the results. Food freedom is much more popular than all these politicians realize.
I did not expect this to be anything more than, maybe a 1/3 issue. Like but then when we found the results that we did, I was disappointed in myself for not expecting that, because I like to pride myself on knowing different groups of people, and you have liberal, I'm from a crazy world, where I know the working class and I know the bougie, and I have friends who had moms who thought we got to have our own homestead, and I'm going to buy this big property outside of our urban area, and I'm going to grow this. And she was crazy liberal. And then I had conservative friends who believed that the FDA and the USDA, they were all full of shit. They didn't protect you from anything, and don't buy anything that's not, whatever this, or not raised in a cage. And so I should have known better, and I was shocked. I really was. And it's overwhelming. So it's a no-brainer. This is a good way for her to get her to get out from under that cloud, because she is under one. Let's be honest.
She can go from being someone that people are skeptical of to being someone that is an icon of the Trump administration.
Yeah, right away.
Is a huge
Right
issue.
away.
And she can become a big winner. So this is a reform administration, because that's what Trump, this Trump second term, fundamentally, if you were to define it, is a reform administration. Now, I would call it restorative. It's restoring the constitutional republic to its roots.
Promise. Yeah.
But it requires massive reform of our corrupted institutions. And she can either prove which side she's on. Is she the real deal, or is she fake? And she can either be an icon or someone that's one of the first people jettisoned from the Trump cabinet. And how she handles cases like Amos Miller will heavily shape that.
Let me ask you, this is the last thing, and I know it's getting late. We're way over. But it was a good conversation. I just wanted to let it go. This is one thing, though, I did have on my list. You got Kash Patel going to the FBI, right? You have all these different people that are going in there to try to reform. Do you think, because we know this is imminent for people who don't know, it's an executive order on the Department of Education that's coming. And I was actually talking to, quite frankly, about this the other night. It was started through, as other things were, through executive order, and then later an act of Congress, codifies it, puts it into place. Number one, can he really do this, and how long will it have staying power? Will anything be able to, if he issues this executive order, can anything actually happen from it? Like, they seem to be able to start and create new agencies, but they can't destroy them with the executive order, right? And then Congress seems to be able to rubber stamp it after it's created, but never wants to remove it. So I guess my question is, can he really make anything happen with an executive order? And then my second thing is this. Republicans, as we've been talking about, are traitors. There are a lot of traitors. Reagan tried to eliminate the Department of Education. Fucking John McCain stabbed him in the back, by the way. A young John McCain and a bunch of others. But it was his own party that did him in. So how far can this reform go? How far do you think it really can go? So let's say two. One is Department of Education specific. The other one is, how far do you think it can go in reality, bro?
You got to cut off the funds, number one, so you can cut off the personnel, number two.
Yeah.
And then you've got to educate the public with constant, continuous master classes as to what's happening. He's, the Kennedy and Gabbard confirmation hearings helped achieve that last part. Yeah. Doge is helping with the first part. And then their efforts to get people to resign, give people options. My view is anybody who doesn't resign in the first month or two that are bad faith actors need to be put under investigation. Because they've either violated the law or committed outright crimes. And if the corrupt actors know that if they hang around and keep trying to betray the government, this is what Putin did in Russia. Putin takes over Russia. At the time, it's run by oligarchs. The country is collapsing. The Russian military, or not the Russian, we had Russian generals trying to sell nuclear submarines to Colombian drug cartels. And that's how insane it was. Jesus. The way Putin stepped in, he realized if he tried to go direct at all the oligarchs, he probably wouldn't last.
He wouldn't
so
last.
Instead,
no way.
Called them together and said, here's the deal. You can keep what you stole, but if you keep trying to steal, you're going forward, you're just going to pay a flat tax. He loved Jerry Brown's flat tax, which is always interesting. It's going to be a low 10%, but you got to give at least a little something back of what you're taking. And you got to quit stealing, and you got to stay out of politics and stop trying to run the country so you can enrich yourself. Because if you do that, you can go to Monaco and have fun on your yachts with your latest girlfriend.
I'm going to leave you alone.
Don't, you're going to get a long trip to Siberia. And what happened? 90% of the oligarchs were like, yeah, we're fine. We're out of here. One or two are like, screw you, Vlad. And they got a long, undesired vacation to Siberia and discovered that wasn't so likable. Trump's got to do the same thing, but more delicately. Putin could put it more bluntly because of the power base he had. Trump is in a little bit different situation, but like he did today. Today was perfect. Say, I'm really curious where all the kickbacks were going, right? That's a way of sending a message to everybody involved. Keep yipping about this. Keep trying to steal en masse from the American people, and we got a new level of scrutiny coming your way. Keep it up on that level of path, because I think that's what he needs to do to control and reform these corrupt institutions. But you got to take away their money. You got to get rid of the personnel. Best way to get rid of the personnel is to get rid of the money.
Yeah,
because they have all the judicial branch
holding them there at that point. They'll take the deal. For people who don't know, there's a deal on the table.
Retirement benefits 6 months, and they know now, as Trump is beginning to escalate, they won't be subject to review for all the bad things they did over the past 20 years. The Trumps won't let dead dogs lie and reform for the future unless you're preventing that reform for the future, and then some sacrificial lambs are going to be needed from the deep state, and they will be coming. Biden previewed that by pardoning Milley and Fauci, knowing those two would be two of the most vulnerable, susceptible targets for their extensive illegality and criminal behavior. Credit to Hegseth for. But the other thing that has gone under the radar is the executive order that asks all the cabinet members to do full internal investigations of everything that has gone wrong and is going wrong. And he's asking for them to be cross-checked. Why that? He wants people like Kennedy to look at the Defense Department and internal report. He wants advice from the people he has confidence. He wants Tulsi Gabbard to have access to all that. So what he's going to use is that's going to be the mass public education, is when you get these big reports that detail the scale and scope of what's been taking place to make the next institutional legislative reform. That is the next stage of what's coming. Well, I think his strategy on Department of Education is always smart. People hear education and they think Trump wants to stop little kids from being educated.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
that's where I would emphasize over and over again what he's talked about. He'd get rid of the department, but send all the money back to the states for schools. Because then you take away that counter. So like any money that's budgeted for education, go to the states, let the states handle it. Let the states experiment with their school system, et cetera. So that way you remove that criticism, you restore federalism. Education should be a state level issue. And it should be, if liberals want to do it one way and conservatives want to do it another way, that's the way we should have it done. That's what is the federalism is supposed to be, an incubator of new ideas to see what works and what doesn't. That I think would be the right way to go. It's definitely going to be a hurdle. But I'll be honest, I thought he would have faced more hurdles. He's just blitzing through them. And I think that's why he does some of these foreign leaders every other day. He's like, I'm going to show everybody in Washington, I'm going to smack around somebody they thought never could be smacked around.
Yeah, yeah. I think
and
you're
he's
right.
doing it like
think
that,
you're right.
like that, like that, like that.
And that's why
And-
he's leaving Xi Jinping to the end.
Yes,
Yeah, I
exactly.
think that's what he's because the first term, it's kind of the way he's always done things, you know. Oh, you want a piece of cake? Hold on 1 second. Hold on. Sorry, I just decided to bomb Assad. Anyway, what were you saying? Like that? Yeah, that's his style.
That's where he's going to go. And
Yeah,
I mean,
it
in
makes
China,
sense, good stuff.
it was
I
a
think you're right
brilliance
about this.
of Trump would have Rubio explain that the issue with China economically is a security issue. That key elements of our supply chain that we need
Could
to
be
survive
disrupted.
are
Yes.
controlled by China. And that China knows it isn't their whole U.S. treasuries that's a blackmail on China, on U.S. It's our key medicines we have to get from China. Key components of energy we have to get from China. I mean, key products we have to get from China. And this doesn't even get to China buying up U.S. agriculture land, so which is its own set of it. So he understands that's the risk. And with Xi, he's going to have maximum leverage because China's economy is in serious trouble because they created a bogus real estate bubble to keep everybody employed, and during COVID, did some lockdowns they couldn't economically afford. Nobody's looking for the Chinese yen. Everybody's looking for the U.S. dollar. So the U.S. dollar, U.S. could take hits, but could survive the insane lockdowns. Cuba could not. China could not. That is why they're unusually politically vulnerable. And if Trump parlays it right, he can get real reform and remedy through.
That's good shit, Robert. Tell everybody where they can follow you, brother, as always.
Yeah, if you want all of the political picks, I got more. We'll be putting up couchy picks all the time. We're even going to be putting up picks on the Oscars. I will give you a quick hit on the Oscars. You know how you bet the Oscars, right? Always bet on the Jew. That's it. Just bet on the Jew or the Jew story. That always works better. And I say this as sport of Israel in case anybody misinterprets us somewhere. At sportspicks.locals.com. Made huge profits on the election, big profits on the pardons. Hey, if Biden is going to be corrupt, shouldn't we get at least a little piece of the action? We can bet on Biden pardoning the family. We got bets up on Tulsi Gabbard. We got that have already cashed. We got bets up on RFK nomination on who's going to back him, and all these things as they keep developing. So sportspicks.locals.com. That's where you can get all of those political prognostications in where I actually put my money where my mouth is.
I'll tell you, Robert, this was a hell of an episode, brother. It really was, man. As always, thanks, and look forward to the next one.
And
Robert
remember,
Barnes,
everybody, if you want good polling data, accurate polling data you can even make money on if you're smart, you go to the public polling project at Big Data Polling at People's Pundit on locals.com. Because we need that accurate
definitely
information
do that
against all the lies from the mainstream media.
Thanks, brother. As always, I'll see you soon, okay?
Go, man.
Robert Barnes, ladies and gentlemen, go check him out at sportspicks.locals.com, and I will see him and you on the next What Are the Odds. Tomorrow is Wednesday, so we will definitely be having an Inside the Numbers, so don't forget it, all right? I agree, Tracy, and the rest of you. I was reading your comments towards the end there. I think it was a good one, too. I really do. And I hope you enjoyed it. And of course, we try to do just that. Really do. All right, guys, I'll see you soon. Don't forget, don't do anything stupid. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. And as always, like Laura says, deuces. All right, we're out. Like trout, but fishing, we're out. And that is not the right one. So we're just going to leave it to me. I got a better one. You ready? Bam! That's all, folks. Jesus, cynic. That was stronger than I thought. I want to get some water.